Chapter 553, Splitting Open the Skies. Chapter 553, Splitting Open the Skies. Pu, Ling Han instantly spat out his mouthful of wine. If Fatty Ma said he wanted to form some kind of party to conquer the world, then Ling Han would not be the slightest bit surprised. There were countless people in the pages of history with such grand ambitions, so it would not be a surprise that Ma Duo Bao would join their ranks. However, this Ma Duo Bao should not have such great power, right? Though Ling Han couldn't see through him, no matter how he thought about it, there was no way that the former's power had reached the shattering void tier. But to split open the skies. The gods were everywhere. These gods would not punish evil, but if one were to upset the balance of the world, it would make the eye of heavenly Tao appear, and possibly even directly eliminate such a being. Ling Han had said something similar previously, resulting in the appearance of the eye of heavenly Tao, which was then scared off by Hu Niu's shouting. Thus, he did not dare to speak carelessly now. There were some things that one only had to know in one's heart before one had obtained enough power. It was best not to speak carelessly. Fatty, you really are ambitious, Ling Han said ruefully. But please allow me to ask, what purpose would that have? Ma Duo Bao bared his teeth in a grin and said, shattering void tier shatters the empty void, which would allow only one person to become an immortal. My tanned brother, don't you think it would be better if we simply split apart this whole sky and allow everyone to enter the realm of immortals so everyone would be like dragons? Ling Han was struck dumb. This really was an astonishing ambition, to split apart the skies so that everyone would be able to enter into the realm of immortals. Is that possible? He asked. Without trying, how do you know that it's impossible? Ma Duo Bao asked calmly. He had never thought that this damn fatty would actually have such a grand ambition and the domineering desire to benefit the whole world. He actually wanted to bring everyone with him into the realm of immortals. To be honest, Ling Han had never even thought of such a thing. Since the beginning of time, ascending to immortality had always been an individual matter. How could it be possible that relatives and friends of the individual would ascend along with him? But thinking about it again, if it really was possible to split apart the skies and cleave the earth, one could really bring his companions with him to ascend to the realm of immortals. As long as one was strong enough. Ling Han mused silently. It seemed that it was a very difficult feat for immortals to descend to the lower realm. If that wasn't the case, wouldn't legends about immortals appearing in the lower realm spread all over the world? He had obtained the memory crystal of Zi Shuezian, and had seen with his own eyes and heard with his own ears those immortals admit that they would be suppressed upon their descent into the lower realm, and then could be expelled from it. It was obvious that crossing into another realm was a very difficult thing. Fatty, let me offer you a toast. Ling Han raised his wine cup. Regardless of whether he was willing to join or not, merely the fact that Ma Duo Bao had such an aspiration was worthy of his admiration. Ma Duo Bao gladly clinked his own cup against his, and they both emptied their cups. My tanned brother. All right. My name is Ling Han. Just call me by name. All right, my tanned brother. Ma Duo Bao readily accepted his request, yet had completely no intention to change his form of address. Have you ever thought why there was a lapse in history 10,000 years ago? Ling Han could not help but feel secretly shocked. He recalled Zi Shuezian and his previous lifetime. At the time, he had not had the slightest suspicion, but now that he thought about it, a lapse also appeared about 9,000 years ago in the history of his previous life. A great many martial arts inheritances were buried in history, including alchemical knowledge. It was even worse off for array arts as the knowledge had practically all gone extinct. Through calculation, the great catastrophe which led to the destruction of that era he was in actually just so happened to be 1,000 years later, which was precisely 10,000 years. Once every 10,000 years, a great catastrophe would appear in this world. Furthermore, Zi Shuezian had left behind her last words, and said that all that had surpassed these 10,000 years were a gigantic deception. What had she meant? Did it have some kind of relation with the great catastrophe that took place every 10,000 years? He pondered for a moment, then said, could it be that Brother Ma knows? I do indeed know, but the walls have ears, so I still cannot announce it verbally, Ma Duo Bao said seriously. Walls? Where were the walls? And where would the ears be? Ling Han did not understand, and merely continued to look at Ma Duo Bao. Ma Duo Bao raised a single finger and pointed straight up at the skies. The Eye of Heavenly Tao? Ling Han asked in shock. Ma Duo Bao shook his head and raised his finger higher. Ling Han stared blankly for a moment before he instantly came to a realization. The Eye of Heavenly Tao was merely the guardian of this realm and was high above them. Then what was even higher than that? The realm of immortals. The realm of immortals was monitoring this realm. In addition, the enemies that Zi Shuexian encountered were her clansmen from the realm of immortals. Those people had mentioned the subject of destruction of the human race, and seemed to be the culprits behind that great disaster 10,000 years ago. What Ling Han did not understand was, wouldn't it be a very simple thing if the realm of immortals wanted to destroy the lower realm? Even if immortals would be suppressed and weakened upon their descent into the lower realm, wouldn't it be fine if a few more came? After all, there were only a few shattering void tier cultivators in this world, but how many immortals were there in the realm of immortals? My tanned brother, 10,000 years is a cycle. After 100 years, or perhaps there may only be a few dozen years left, another calamity will befall the world. If we don't think of something, then the tragedy that happened 10,000 years ago would repeat itself, Ma Duo Bao said. That can't be, right? Zhu Xian had been listening quietly from the side, but she finally gasped out in spite of herself. This topic was really too astonishing. Helian Zun Shui and Hu Niu, on the other hand, were completely indifferent. One of them had lost her memories, whereas the other was a child, so they had completely no concept of world destruction. Ling Han asked, "Does Brother Ma know the source of all this?" "I can't say." Ma Duo Bao shook his head, his finger pointing straight up at the skies. Ling Han was astonished, and asked, could it be that announcing it verbally would lead to a great disaster? If the whole world consisted of dumb commoners, they would naturally be easy to rule over, Ma Duo Bao said with a smile. Thus, smart people would also have to pretend to be foolish. My tanned brother, your talent is shockingly high, and in the future, you will definitely become someone important, but you must remember, there are too many strong elites in this world. Before you have enough power to protect yourself, you must remember to conceal your strength and bide your time. Ling Han nodded, and said, thanks for the advice. Then, my tanned brother, would you be interested to cooperate with me on this righteous undertaking? Ma Duo Bao asked. My current power is still too low. Let's see after I reach the heaven tier, Ling Han said in refusal. It was naturally not possible that just because Ma Duo Bao had sketched out a grand plan and outlined a grand ambition, Ling Han would simply join his banner without any care. Ma Duo Bao made no more attempts at persuasion. He merely clapped Ling Han's shoulder and said, my tanned brother, I trust that you will definitely make the right choice. That's right, it hasn't been too peaceful recently, so you had better stay inside the city. Also, take this spirit talisman. Use it at the most dangerous moment as it will be able to save your life. He threw a spirit talisman at Ling Han. Then, without waiting for Ling Han to ask him further questions, he left swiftly. Ling Han and Zhu Xian, meanwhile, were still savoring his last words. What did he mean? Damn fatty, Niu's meat. Yet Hu Niu released a pitiful cry. Ma Duo Bao had left, but he had actually stolen all the meat skewers that had been on the barbecue grill. How could she not feel heartache at that? Ling Han comforted her, and drew out some more meat to barbecue. He and Zhu Xian exchanged a look. Both of them felt much worry. Ma Duo Bao's words had revealed a shocking piece of information, and it seemed that the catastrophe that had almost destroyed the world 10,000 years ago could possibly happen again. Also, that fatty said not to leave the city, as it is not very peaceful outside. What does that mean? Ling Han rubbed his chin, and felt that that damn fatty was really independable. He had merely revealed half the information in all that he said, and wanted Ling Han to guess the rest. Zhu Xian was also baffled. Only Hu Niu and Helian Zun Shui were completely carefree, continuing to barbecue the meat at one side elatedly as they eyed the food greedily. Chapter 554, Trapped. Chapter 554, Trapped. Reverie _ A night passed as Ling Han and the three girls returned to Spirit Treasure's pavilion. Although Shenyuan Ziguang said he would kill Ling Han if the latter came out, Shenyuan Ziguang wasn't that unoccupied to keep an eye on Ling Han for an entire day, otherwise, a great battle would be inevitable. When it was afternoon, Yin Hong ran over hastily. "What happened for you to be in such a desperate rush?" Ling Han said with a smile. "Pa, this old lady is still a virtuous lady, how could you use desperate to describe me?" Yin Hong said, displeased. "A virtuous lady that has the words this old lady on the tip of her tongue, you're truly the first I've seen," Ling Han said, smiling. "Now you've seen it for yourself," Yin Hong said unabashedly. "Oh, right. There's a great matter I need you to know." "What matter?" Ling Han asked thoughtlessly. "In the recent days, there hasn't been anyone entering the city," Yin Hong said. "This counts as a great matter." "How does it not? You know that what kind of a place Million Treasures City is and how many people come and go every day? Millions. However, now there are only people going out, and no one is coming in. The entire city's much more desolate. Go to the Great Pavilion and see how many few customers there are," Yin Hong said in one breath. Ling Han thought all of a sudden that Ma Duobao said the previous day it wasn't peaceful outside recently and that it was best to stay inside Million Treasures City due to that. Could it be that this damned fatso knew the reason and that's why he intentionally warned him? "Do you know the reason?" Yin Hong shook her head and said, "Sent out a few groups of people to investigate the situation, but they also left without returning." She paused, and then said, "Perhaps Million Treasures has been targeted by some force, which set up blockades on the major roads so that people can only leave and not enter." Ling Han knocked on the table and said, "What force would do such a thing, and what merits does it have for them?" Spirit Treasures Pavilion did business, while the Alchemist Society refined pills. The two united could make medicinal pills circulate throughout the entire world. For martial artists, this was a beneficial thing, so who would destroy it? Even if the Heaven's Sword sect, the Cloud Phoenix sect, and the other ancient sects had their own alchemists, they didn't need to do such a thing, right? "That's why we have to get to the bottom of it," Yin Hong said. Ling Han glared at her, and said, "You're thinking of using me? Don't you want to know who did it?" Yin Hong said with a snicker. "When the sky falls down, there'll be an able person there to hold it. I'm merely in the flower blossom tier, it's none of my business," Ling Han said, not at all concerned. Yin Hong no longer laughed, but said, "This situation is truly somewhat unusual. The transmission stone already lost contact with the outside, and now people can only leave and not enter. It's as if Million Treasures City has become an abandoned city, not knowing what's happening outside. Aren't there heaven-tier elites? Just let them go have a look," Ling Han said. Someone conjectured that this could be a great conspiracy. Even if heaven-tier elites appeared, they might be targeted. Million Treasures City's defensive formation is first-rate. As long as it has the support of a sufficient amount of origin crystals, even a shattering void tier can't break in, Yin Hong said. Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, "So, heaven tier cultivators are scared of dying, making flower blossom tier juniors give up their lives? That's not so. Although flower blossom tier warriors are weak, the elites instead do not care, and it might not be as dangerous." Yin Hong revealed a worried look. Mainly, Million Treasures City has become blind and deaf, and doesn't know at all what it'll face next. It has to get help from the outside. Ling Han sighed. Why was it unpeaceful everywhere he went? "Does this count as being dragged down by you?" he said, smiling. "Haha, once aboard this old lady's pirate ship, just accept your fate," coordinating with him, Yin Hong laughed maniacally. However, this truly wasn't good news. After a few days, the situation became less and less reassuring because as people raised their heads, the entire sky couldn't be seen. What replaced it was a black-colored mist that covered the sky. Now, everyone felt uneasy. The city instantly was full of fear and anxiety. Ling Han took out the spirit talisman Ma Duoba gave him. He couldn't help but think that this damned fatso already knew that this would happen, telling him not to leave the city in the near future. Apparently, this wasn't the end, and something even more dangerous would happen. This spirit talisman could save his life. Ling Han laughed. Ma Duobao obviously didn't know he possessed the Black Tower, which was his greatest life-saving trump card. However, this spirit talisman shouldn't be wasted, because the things Ma Duoba had were definitely remarkable. This should be an instant teleportation talisman, he speculated. He was, after all, a heaven-tier elite in the previous life, and could guess it from the vein-like patterns on the spirit talisman. Instant teleportation talisman. Although I've tricked many people into thinking that I possess instant teleportation talismans and not the Black Tower, I never wouldn't thought I would actually receive one. This thing, even I didn't know how to create in the previous life. It said that one must be a shattering void tier elite, having clear knowledge of the secrets of the void, to refine it. Ma Duoba really has many treasures. Did this guy obtain an ancient treasure trove? His possessions are truly surprising. His strength is unfathomable, and who knows where he's run off to now. Ling Han decided to leave the city to have a look, as sitting still to await death wasn't his style. He had the Black Tower and could avert disaster in a hopeless situation. Moreover, he was also very curious. This was Million Treasures City, with heaven-tier elites keeping watch, yet someone dared to conspire against it. Just how powerful was this force? He had the three girls enter the Black Tower. If an incident happened in Million Treasures City once he'd left and they were exposed, it would be too late for regrets. However, the problem was that only Zhu Xian would listen obediently. Unfortunately, to Ling Han's worry, Helion Zun Shui couldn't be stored into the Black Tower. Hu Niu wasn't willing to enter the Black Tower, either, nagging him to let her stay with him. It couldn't be helped, they'd go together. Hu Niu could enter the Black Tower at a dangerous time anyway. Helion Zun Shui was a heaven-tier elite and might be able to trigger her instincts at a moment of life and death, recovering her terrifying strength. The city's formation was already activated to fend against unknown dangers. However, going out was a piece of cake. Everyone hoped for someone to go out to see the situation, and worried about there being no volunteers. The three successfully left the city. Black mist filled the air, impeding their sight. Ling Han activated the Eye of Truth, but it was useless. The mist was so thick that even it couldn't see through it. It wasn't that the Eye of Truth wasn't powerful enough, but that Ling Han's tier was a bit too low, influencing its effects. Be careful, Ling Han said, letting Zhu Xian out. Storing people into the Black Tower was the matter of a thought anyway. The four walked forwards, and soon the black mist revolved and surrounded them. Their visibility instantly decreased yet again. They were barely able to see things a meter away. Ling Han was slightly better, seeing twice as far. What formation is this? Zhu Xian asked. Amongst the three girls, she was slightly more reliable. Helion Zun Shui's intelligence was worrying, and Hu Niu was just a child. Ling Han's expression was grave as he said, if my guess isn't wrong, this is the fourth killing formation. Chapter 555, Battling Shenyuan Zi Guang. Chapter 555, Battling Shenyuan Zi Guang. Reverie _ The fourth killing formation? Zhu Xian asked in astonishment. According to the legends, there are spirits in heaven and earth that form 10 natural killing formations, Ling explained. The 10 killing formations are all extremely terrifying. The second killing formation to the 10th killing formation can even wipe out shattering void tiers. Then what about the first killing formation? Zhu Xian couldn't help but ask. The first killing formation. Ling Han paused. It's also known as God killing formation. Could it really kill gods? Zhu Xian cried out. That's right. Ling Han nodded. The first killing formation can erase even gods, the world's greatest killing formation. However, knowledge of formations was lost, so who could set up such a killing formation now? The fourth killing formation could even wipe out high-level shattering void tier elites, yet someone could actually set it up at this day and age. Not to mention whether such a grand formation master existed, the materials used to set up the formation alone were something extremely extravagant. Then aren't we in extreme danger? Zhu Xian said. Ling Han nodded, and said, no idea which force actually trapped Million Treasures City with the fourth killing formation. Are they trying to turn the entire city into a land of the dead? But, Million Treasures City is Middle State's financial center. Its value consists in Spirit Treasures Pavilion and the Alchemist Society. If everyone dies, how would it benefit them? If it were to take over a favorable location, that would be understandable, But Million Treasures City wasn't some holy land for cultivation and had no worldy treasures. Was it really necessary to unleash the fourth killing formation? Truly strange. Ling Han shook his head and said, "We can't possibly break through this formation, and even if a shattering void tier elite came, they'd have to be at least in the 9th layer to qualify to break past it. Otherwise, even if a dozen came, they'd still fail." Zhu Xian obviously agreed. How many shattering void tier cultivators were there in the vast lands? No one knew, but at most several dozen. Even if all of them came, they might not even be able to resolve this formation. They retreated slowly for fear that the formation would react, killing them on spot. Fortunately, the fourth killing formation, which could kill shattering void tier elites, didn't seem to care much about nobodies like them. The formation was stagnant and had no reaction. On the other hand, it was also because they didn't go deep. The killing formation was a killing formation, after all, and wouldn't miss a small fish because its net was big. They retreated out of the formation, and Million Treasures City appeared before them. In reality, this was the entire killing formation's core, but since Spirit Treasure Pavilion also activated a formation to resist, this became a relatively safe area. Han Lin. With a sneer, an imposing and domineering figure appeared before them. Shenyuan Ziguang. He stared at Ling Han, and his killing intent circulated. This wasn't in front of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, and was even outside of Million Treasures City. No one could stop him from murder here. Ling Han waved his hand, and said, "You guys go into the city first. I'll take on this guy. Be careful." Zhu Xian was kind and caring. "Beat him up." While Hunyou waved her small fists. "Beat him." Helian Xuanxue was now leaning towards Hunyou because she obviously wouldn't trust Zhu Xian after Liu Yutong and Li Saichan's brainwashing, leaving her only mimicking Hunyou. 2 grown-ups and a child returned to the city, while Ling Han and Shenyuan Ziguang faced off. Ling Han didn't dare to take things lightly. Battling at the same tier, he had the confidence not to lose to anyone. However, Shenyuan Ziguang was not only much higher in tier, he also had superb battle prowess. In reality, Ling Han was in a disadvantageous position. Shenyuan Ziguang cut the superfluous words and attacked with a palm from afar. Hong, a sea of fire spread out, spiraling fiercely towards Ling Han. Ling Han carried out Demon Fairy Step, charging towards his opponent. There was too great of a difference in tier between him and his opponent, and it would be too stupid of him to fire against each other at a distance. In battle, one obviously should play to one's forte. To greet an opponent with one's weakness would be too unwise. Page. Dream on. Shenyuan Ziguang snorted. He also carried out a movement art and pulled apart the distance between them while unleashing powerful attacks, taking the absolute initiative. His martial arts talent truly wasn't below that of Ling Han, and even surpassed it in certain aspects. At least, 22 flashes of Qi were currently number 1 amongst the younger generation, and under the amplification of Heaven and Earth Spirit Qi, it was as if there were 23 of him attacking Ling Han together, truly shocking. Ling Han responded with ease. He also had many trump cards, such as the Demon Birth Sword, the Thunder Battle Armor, and the Iron Sheet Body, and which of those couldn't turn the tables? He also laughed coldly, and said, "Since you don't dare to fight in close quarters combat, then have a taste of this." His figure retreated continuously, and instantly pulled 10 meters away from Shenyuan Ziguang. Earlier, he kept trying to close the distance between them, thus this sudden retreat was out of Shenyuan Ziguang's expectations, making him stop momentarily and not counterattack immediately in fear that it might be a trap. Shenyuan Ziguang moved forward, while Ling Han also leapt backwards. "Page, my cultivation is higher than yours and my origin power is denser, pulling apart the gap. You're even less of an opponent," Shenyuan Ziguang said loftily, firing out a palm attack as 23 fire lions appeared and pounced at Ling Han. It was only 10 meters. It was impossible for origin power to be exhausted at such a small distance. Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, "You think too highly of yourself." He gestured as if drawing a bow, and instantly, a speck of light surfaced, turning into the shape of an arrow. With a xiu, it shot towards Shenyuan Ziguang. Annihilating Dragon Star Arrow. Fast as a ray of light. Shenyuan Ziguang was shocked, hurriedly summoning origin power in defense. Pa, The arrow shot at his chest, but the origin power shield appeared in time, blocking the arrow. Even so, it still made him groan. It was so painful that he almost hacked a mouthful of blood. In terms of power, he was obviously above Ling Han, but Ling Han focused power on one point, while he had to guard his entire body. This was obviously incomparable. It couldn't be helped, the arrow was too fast, and he didn't know what part of him it would aim at, forcing him to guard all over. Ling Han retreated with ease, escaping from the 23 fire tigers, and said, "You're nothing more than this." Shenyuan Ziguang made a very sullen face. No matter tier or battle prowess, he should firmly suppress Ling Han, yet he suffered a small loss, damaging his self-esteem. A godlike man like him. He was always the only one who, at a lower tier, won against other geniuses. How could he be beaten by someone at a lower tier? He was furious. A flame arose above his head and turned into a dragon, phoenix, and other ancient miraculous beasts, showing his extremely unique bloodline. "You are dead for sure," he announced coldly. Ling Han laughed, and said, "You are really good at talking big." Who didn't know how to speak in declarative? Hong. At this moment, the black mist surged, swords and axes covered in frightening vein-like patterns could be seen indistinctly within, radiating a shockingly cold glare. Ling Han's expression changed drastically, and he immediately ran towards the city. Shenyuan Ziguang was furious. Seeing that he was about to unleash his power, this brat actually abandoned the battle. He was just about to curse, but then he also saw the changes in the black mist, instantly feeling a chill inside. He also exerted power on both feet, running towards the city gate. The fourth killing formation had been activated. Chapter 556, The Fourth Killing Formation. Chapter 556, The Fourth Killing Formation. Reverie _ The killing formation was activated, and an extraordinary image arose, forming a terrifying, great danger. After Ling Han returned to the city, he smiled at Shenyuan Ziguang, and said, "What? Why are you following me? Come, let's fight for 300 rounds. He assumed a fighting stance, ready to give it all. Shenyuan Ziguang was almost angered to death. "You freaking guarded the city gate, only to say fight for 300 rounds. Could there be such a cheap person? Not to mention 300 rounds, if he was only stopped shortly, he would be killed by the killing formation right away. I'll come collect this debt from you in the future," he said in a grave voice, turning into an arrow and charging at the city gate. Ling Han originally wanted to mess with him, but feeling several formidable and terrifying mental spirits, he gave up on the idea. True elites had come, and definitely wouldn't sit idly as he killed Shenyuan Ziguang craftily. How unfortunate, he'd still wanted to make the other party suffer. Million Treasures City's Great Formation was also completely activated, and a white flash of light covered the city's skies like an eggshell. In reality, unseen beneath the ground was another half of an eggshell, guarding this ancient city from all directions with 0 blind spots. The Spirit Treasures Pavilion really wasn't short on the money at all. While this defensive formation was first-rate, it was also terrifying when it burned origin crystals. Black swords 100 m long formed within the killing formation, emitting a shockingly cold glare. Even though several heaven-tier elites were already at the top of the city, they all felt a chill within facing against the black swords. It couldn't be blocked. Those black swords were like completely activated spirit tools, and heaven-tier elites would definitely be killed instantly if they stepped near them. The black sword slashed past. Fortunately, the city's great formation had been activated, turning into a shield that blocked the black sword. Vein-like patterns intertwined and shone, turning into countless fragments that scattered down from the sky. Thankfully, it was blocked. Everyone was greatly shocked. Which force insisted on targeting Million Treasures City? No matter whether it was Spirit Treasures Pavilion or Alchemist Society, they were harmonious in bringing wealth, and were of status above the norm, never making enemies of any force, so why would they attract someone using such a killing formation? Could this be the fourth killing formation? An old fogey cried out. The fourth killing formation? Most people were at a loss. Killing formations are formed naturally by the world. There is a total of 10 kinds of them. Though ranked one after another, Their powers are actually not much different, and according to legends, they could even kill Shattering Void Tier Elite. As for the first killing formation, it's the world's first unbreakable formation, claimed to be able to kill gods, the old fogey explained. What? Hearing those words, everyone's expressions changed drastically. What could be done? The fourth killing formation surrounded the city. Could Million Treasures City's defensive formation rival it? Moreover, even Shattering Void Tier warriors could be killed. Once the city's defense broke, they would all die inevitably. Who was it, to be so deranged? Ling Han activated the Eye of Truth and observed continuously, comparing as he said, the fourth killing formation isn't complete, and one Shattering Void Tier Elite can probably break it. Boy, what do you know? Who the hell are you? The adults are talking, kids screw off to the side. Once he spoke, it instantly aroused many people's dissatisfaction. These people were all self-assured in their experience, even flaunting their identities in a situation like this. However, there were also people who kept an open mind and revealed a hint of cheerfulness. It was rumored that Spirit Treasure's pavilion had a Shattering Void Tier big shot keeping watch, and if he took the field, wouldn't he be able to break through the formation? With this little friend's words, this old man suddenly feels the same. It suddenly occurred to the old fogey earlier. Otherwise, this city's great formation couldn't possibly block the fourth killing formation. This was a naturally formed killing formation, something extremely terrifying. Only the other 8 killing formations could rival it. As for the first killing formation, it could kill gods, so even the other 9 killing formations added together were inferior to it. If only Ling Han said so, obviously no one would believe it. The words of the lowly carried little weight. However, being confirmed by the old fogey, more people instantly believed those words, which also greatly increased their confidence. Please request the senior of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion to intervene and break through this killing formation. That's right, only that supreme being can do it. Everyone said one after another. Although they had no right at all to request a Shattering Void Tier Elite to act, it greatly concerned their lives, so they could only muster up the courage to say so. Otherwise, there would only be the road that led to death ahead of them. A figure flashed by. It was shockingly the damned fatso, Yin Shuiyang. He looked outside the city as another black-colored spear formed, launching a second attack. He frowned, and said, "Several pavilion masters have left Million Treasures City to visit other places." The Grand Pavilion Master also left. Everyone cried out. He left. Yin Shuiyang sighed. "Now, this pavilion only has me, the only pavilion master keeping watch." Everyone was depressed. Heaven tier elites couldn't break through the fourth killing formation even if it was an incomplete one. Pray that the great formation guarding the city is strong enough, guarding till those seniors return. Everyone could only hope so. Ling Han, however, was curious. Those pavilion masters of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion actually all left the city, moreover at the same time? Being able to move 8 pavilion masters together, could it be that an extraordinary historic site had been discovered? Yin Shuiyang shook his head, and said, "The 8 pavilion masters won't possibly return in near time. Probably, 1 to 2 years would still be difficult." What, that long? Everyone's faces turned pale. 1 to 2 years. Could this great defensive formation be maintained for 1 to 2 years? Million Treasures City is an important land of middle state. With communications cut off for a long time, people will definitely realize that something is wrong and run over to see exactly what's going on, someone said, filled with hope. However, can we really endure till that time? Someone said pessimistically. Hong. 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 The fourth killing formation kept bombarding Million Treasures City. The great city-guarding formation formed a shield to protect it, but it wouldn't stand such crazy bombardment for long. Soon, cracks appeared on this shield, which shattered with a bang in the end. The great city-guarding formation formed a second shield, and continued to withstand the fourth killing formation's bombardment. In the short term, the defensive power could completely keep up with the destructive power, reaching a balance. The city's protection wouldn't be broken through. The problem was that the great city-guarding formation was activated by origin crystals, and under such high expenditure, how long could it be maintained? After Yin Shuiyang and a big shot of the Alchemist Society discussed shortly, they arrived at a conclusion: it could endure for half a year, and if the other forces took out their origin crystals as support, then it would last even longer. At such a time, no one dared to be selfish. Everyone contributed their origin crystals one after another, hoping that the Great Formation could persist until reinforcements arrived. "Where are the experts of the Alchemist Society?" someone asked. Right, although Alchemist primarily refined pills, the Alchemist Society's headquarters were here, so they hired a few elites to keep watch. Perhaps there might be a shattering void tier super elite there. The 2 heaven-grade alchemists left the city long ago with their heaven-tier followers, an alchemist said. His status was considerably high as he was a high-level Earth-grade alchemist. The Spirit Treasures Pavilion and the Alchemist Society left at the same time, but Million Treasures City suffered the surrounding attacks of the 4th killing formation. This wasn't a coincidence no matter how one looked at it. Chapter 557, Dilemma. Chapter 557, Dilemma. Reverie _ Could the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and the Alchemist Society have joined hands to conspire to murder us? Someone with persecutory delusion cried out. Yin Shuiyang sneered, and said, "To kill a dreg like you, would they need to take such a roundabout way? This lord can crush you 10,000 times." This certainly stood to reason, making many agitated people calm down. The key was that the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and the Alchemist Society had no reason to do so. The 8 pavilion masters of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and the 2 heaven-grade alchemists of the Alchemist Society, as well as the heaven-tier elites, did they go to a certain historic site? Ling Han suddenly asked. Yin Shuiyang looked at Ling Han again, revealing an astounded look. Although this youngster interrupted twice and seemed to have no manners, every word he said nailed the spot. He nodded, and said, "That's right." The pavilion received news that Alchemy Emperor Ling Han's ancient tomb was discovered, and within it were treasures collected by the Alchemy Emperor in all his life. Everyone was in an uproar. The Ling Han 10,000 years ago was a legend, not only excelling in alchemy, but also at the pinnacle of martial arts. How much and how shocking would his wealth be? Thinking about it made people's eyes red with desire. Now that his ancient tomb was discovered, could you say that you would hold back and not intervene? Ling Han's expression, however, was strange. A ghost, in his previous life, his flesh was shocked into ash by the Black Tower during an expedition. There couldn't be an ancient tomb where he was buried. This was clearly a trap to draw out the elites of Million Treasures City and take advantage of it to surround the city. Concocting such a great conspiracy just to kill them, the useless troops. Even though there were still Yin Shuiyang and other heaven-tier elites here, setting up the 4th killing formation just to kill a few heaven-tier warriors, this was obviously not worth it. No, there had to be a greater scheme, just that he hadn't thought of it. By the looks of it now, this is a scheme of luring the tiger out of the mountains. Hopefully, the pavilion masters and the 2 grandmasters can return safely. Yin Shuiyang sighed. He obviously knew that things were too coincidental and there definitely was a bait. The enemy hidden in the dark deliberately planned such a large scheme, so presumably, reinforcements wouldn't come in the near time. We can only rely on ourselves now. Yin Shuiyang cupped his fists, and said, "Please, old brothers and sisters. Be generous and help small young guard Million Treasures City. Million Treasures City is our home too, we ought to do everything in our power." A voice floated over from within the city, extremely old but also filled with power and influence, making many people's thighs shiver as they were unable to stand firmly on their feet. "Small young, when it's necessary to intervene, we won't stand by idly." This was an old lady's voice, which was surprisingly like tough iron. After hearing her words, many people cried out with ears leaking blood, unable to withstand such oppressive might. "Yes." A third voice sounded, but it was a simple answer. These were the few heaven-tier forces in the city. Of course, this was also because of Million Treasures City's singularity, or else no city in the middle state would have heaven-tier warriors keeping watch. Yin Shuiyang couldn't help but feel relieved. There were pathetically little shattering void-tier elites in the world, and heaven-tier ones were rare enough. Now, there were 4 heaven-tiers joining hands, obviously making him much more confident. Moreover, the mysterious enemy used the fourth killing formation to entrap them. Did this explain that the opponent didn't have power equal to shattering void tier? Otherwise, even the 4 in the heaven tier wouldn't block it, no? Thinking so, his had slightly even more confidence. Linghan took it all in his eyes, but shook his head. The hidden force definitely had shattering void tier elites, or else why would they act so extremely daringly? Moreover, without the power of shattering void tier warriors, how could they have set up the fourth killing formation? The opponent's shattering void tier powerhouse was probably pinning down the Grand Pavilion Master of Spirit Treasures Pavilion, making him unable to get back in time. Anyway, Million Treasures City currently was certainly in imminent danger. Hong, Long, Long, the fourth killing formation kept operating as black swords, black sabers, black spears, and all other sorts of weapons appeared, bombarding the Great City Guarding Formation. The Great City Guarding Formation only formed a shield in opposition, simple yet effective. The day passed with people overwhelmed in anxiety. When everyone raised their heads to look at the sky on the next day, they were all shocked. Yesterday, the fourth killing formation only prompted weapons to bombard the Great City Guarding Formation one at a time, but today, there were 2 weapons. This created 2 times the destructive power, and obviously caused the expenditure of twice as many origin crystals. The only thing that set people's mind to rest was that the Great City Guarding Formation could still last. Originally, the condensed shield could withstand 10 hits before shattering, but now it shattered with 5 hits. As long as it didn't shatter with 1 hit, then there was no need to worry about the city gates being broken through and the killing formation's menace's direct arrival. Everyone's expression was grave. Yesterday was 1 attack, and today was 2, so would it become 3 tomorrow, and the day after 4? Increasing continuously at this rate, the Great City Guarding Formation's defensive limit would be reached. As expected of the fourth killing formation, Linghan also looked cautious. If he didn't have the Black Tower, he would just tear apart the instant teleportation talisman and run since he couldn't save others anyway. However, he now had the ability to save everyone in the city, and if he chose to only protect himself, an insurmountable threshold would be left in his heart. Saving people was as easy as lifting a hand for him, but this would expose the secret that he possessed the Black Tower. At that time, how many people would target him? Wait, my true self has already been targeted by countless people anyway, so what if I expose that I possess a spatial spirit tool that can accommodate living things? Linghan thought the other way around. A spatial spirit tool that could accommodate living things and the Black Tower, these were 2 different matters. As for the people stored in the Black Tower, he would make them lose their senses, not letting them know where they went during this time. Alright, if it comes to the moment of disaster, I'll appear with my original face, storing everyone into the Black Tower, then leave with the instant teleportation talisman. Linghan made up his mind. With his thoughts clear, his mood instantly turned cheerful. On the 3rd day, the thing everyone worried about happened. The fourth killing formation formed 3 weapons at a time, firing at Million Treasures City. Now, the shield formed by the Great City Guarding Formation exploded in only 3 hits. The atmosphere within the city was stifling, and public order began to go out of control. At night, several vicious incidents happened. There were robberies, murders, and rape on women. Under the Armageddon-like inhibition, the beastly nature in many people's hearts was unleashed. If they were to die, why not do whatever they pleased before dying? The city became more and more chaotic as more people joined in for such wild pleasures. At first, it was only normal people, and afterwards, some lowly martial artists also joined the line of criminals, making the calamity even scarier. At this rate, the fourth killing formation didn't need to break through the city. Million Treasures City would bring about its own destruction. The city's powerful forces joined hands to enforce the law, killing many of Ilda's. The chaotic situation finally returned under control. Fortunately, on the 5th day, the fourth killing formation didn't form 5 weapons, stopping at 4 at a time. Everyone felt slightly at ease. Chapter 558, The Thousand Corpse Sect Assaults. Chapter 558, The Thousand Corpse Sect Assaults. Reverie _ Even though there were only 4 weapons attacking simultaneously, this was still very terrifying. The shield formed by the Great City Guarding Formation could only block 2 attacks before shattering. The consumption of origin crystals became an astronomical figure. Even if the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and the Alchemist Society were very wealthy, they could only endure a month of such expenditure. 1 month later, what would they do? The 10th day came. Someone's here. At the east side of the city, the news spread, and everyone came to the east side of the city like a swarm of bees. They ascended onto the city walls and saw 10 young males and females standing outeast the city. Behind them was a crooked old man, whose eyebrows were all white. "Who are you people? Why trap us in here? What exactly do you guys plan on doing?" Everyone shouted one after another. The 11 people didn't seem to have come here mistakenly no matter how it looked. Yin Shuiyang also came to the city's edge, and as he looked at the old man at the bottom, his expression turned stern. He couldn't see through him. This person was definitely in the heaven tier, and his cultivation wasn't below his. The 11 people in the distance were indifferent. They had no intention of replying, appearing quite arrogant. "May I ask how we might have committed an offense, making you guys open such a killing formation to trap us?" Yin Shuiyang asked. This was a heaven tier elite. The old man finally said, "In Million Treasures City, there's something that my sect must obtain, but we don't know where it is. Finding it will inevitably alert people, so might as well besiege this place and kill everyone. Then, there wouldn't be anyone in the way." It was actually for such a reason. Because they feared others might get in their way, they had set up a killing formation to completely slaughter a city. Could they be more deranged and perverse? After everyone heard, they instantly hurled all kinds of abuse. However, some people thought that to make such a force unsparing in unleashing the 4th killing formation to besiege an important place like Million Treasure City, the thing they sought had to be quite precious, no? For this force to do so, it was equivalent to making all the vast lands its enemy. It wasn't like the 8 pavilion masters of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and the 2 heaven-grade alchemists of the Alchemist Society would never return would they let the matter go after they found out. Only in terms of size, the combination of Spirit Treasures Pavilion and Alchemist Society was probably the most powerful existence in the vast lands, right? To gravely offend such forces just like that, it was enough to prove just how precious that thing was. "Oh, what is it? Why don't you guys let us find it, and remove the 4th killing formation in return?" Yin Shuiyang said, smiling. Although he was a great expert, the blood of a merchant flowed within him, so it was naturally a habit to bargain. "Hee, no need to bother. We still hope to acquire it by ourselves. Moreover, our sect likes this place quite a lot, and plan on turning this place into our sect's main base," the white-browed old man said. "Oh, may I ask what this lord is called, and what your dear sect is called?" Yin Shuiyang asked. The white-browed old man revealed a frightening smile, and said, "This old man is surnamed by one, with a one-character name, Yuan too. As for our sect, hey, you guys should have heard of it to some extent." "Oh, then why not say it and let everyone admire a little?" Yin Shuiyang shot back. "No need to say, see for yourselves." Bai Yuan laughed grimly, and waved his right hand. Hong, long, long, a strange voice sounded as 7 caskets suddenly slid out from the black mist as if they had legs, sliding all the way to his legs before stopping. "The 1,000 Corpse Sect." Instantly, many people cried out at once. Gagaga 3, this sect will use Million Treasures City to tell the entire world that the 1,000 Corpse Sect is back again. Bai Yuan laughed loudly. Hearing his arrogant laughter, the people at the top of the city walls said nothing, feeling only an extremely oppressive atmosphere. The 1,000 Corpse Sect came back so brazenly, and was going to destroy Million Treasures City, while they were the ones who were going to be used for ceremonial sacrifice. Ling Han shook his head inwardly. If the 1,000 Corpse Sect chose Million Treasures City as the location for their gates of revival, then the 4th killing formation would never be withdrawn. It would be 1,000 Corpse Sect's Great Mountain Guarding Formation. The 10 killing formations all had one thing in common. The killing formations formed by heaven and earth didn't need origin crystals to maintain the formation but needed to be set up. The power of heaven and earth would naturally pour in, forming a terrifying murderous calamity. Used as a sect guarding formation, it would truly be the world's finest. Don't say that I didn't give you guys a chance to live. Bai Yuan laughed eerily. These 10 people are the sect master's 10 direct disciples. Now, they're here to choose followers, and those picked by the 10 masters can live on. The 10 young males and females were all lofty. What was surprising was that they clearly didn't have any fluctuations of corpse chi on their bodies, unlike Bai Yuan, whose figure was crooked and bound by corpse chi. A youngster in a green gown said, amongst those in the same age level, whoever can block 10 of my moves will qualify to be my follower. Haha, 7th junior brother actually said to have them block 10 moves. Could you have slacked off recently, falling behind in progression? A youngster in purple clothing said, smiling. Whoever can block 5 of my moves can become my follower. He obviously thought himself stronger in that there weren't many who could block 5 of his moves. These youngsters were certainly strong. All of them were in the flower blossom tier, a few were even in the high stage of the flower blossom tier, no weaker than Shenyuan Ziguang. Rats scampering across the street dare to be so arrogant. Let me test you guys out. Jiozhong already jumped down the city gates, and said loftily, I'm not here to be your follower. Just that you guys are unpleasant to the eye, so I'm finding one to slaughter. Who wants to die? All right. On top of the city, many people instantly cheered. The 1,000 Corpse sect trapped them with a killing formation, not only conspiring to take their lives, but also humiliating them. This obviously made many people's blood boil with indignation, simply wanting a grand battle. However, some people had other ideas because the current circumstances clearly favored the 1,000 Corpse sector. Fine Bird chose a good tree to nestle in. Just a second layer of the flower blossom tier. Who'll go? The 10 disciples of the 1,000 Corpse sect looked at each other, and finally looked at the youngster that had just turned 20. 17th junior brother, your tier is the lowest, so this one'll be up to you. That youngster seemed somewhat shy, and walked out among everyone's jostles, facing against Jiozhong. Die. Jiozhong immediately attacked, reaching out with his right hand and turning it into a golden dragon claw that pressed towards the youngster. Hong, the dragon claw grew with the wind and turned into a terrifying 3-meter-long being. Vein-like patterns shone and drew in heaven and earth's spiritual chi. The claw enlarged once again, reaching 900 meters. Hong, the dragon claw pressed down as if a real dragon was truly drawn out to suppress the world. You have some strength. That youngster nodded, and reached out to counterattack. As he reached out, the 1,000 Corpse sect's special characteristic was immediately displayed as a black-colored evil chi swirled and turned into a frightening skeleton, opening its mouth to bite at the dragon claw. Hong. Chapter 559, Corpse Soldiers Show Off Their Power. Chapter 559, Corpse Soldiers Show Off Their Power. Reverie _ The two battled fiercely. From the circumstances, it was very hard to tell who was better right away. On top of the city walls, everyone was excited. The 1,000 Corpse sect boasted greatly, but in the end, they were nothing more than this. Although Jiozhong was one of the 5 dragons, he definitely couldn't enter top 100 amongst the younger generation in the middle state. Only Shenyuan Ziguang, Yarou Huiyu, and so on could represent the limits of the prodigies of the younger generation. Nevertheless, the 1,000 Corpse sect was a great ancient sect, yet the disciples they fostered were nothing more than this. It seemed that it had been too long, so their sect had waned. If it weren't for the 4th killing formation, they definitely wouldn't stand a single blow. Ling Han, however, shook his head, and said, Jiozhong has lost. His voice wasn't low. It was heard by many people on the side, and they couldn't help but be furious. Hey, which side are you on? Why would you hope for Jiozhong's defeat? Could he be the 1,000 Corpse sect spy? I think he's suspicious. These people all stared at Ling Han, their gazes unfriendly. Zhu Xian was smart, immediately understanding what Ling Han meant. She said, he's the 1,000 Corpse sect's disciple, and 1,000 Corpse sect's true battle prowess lies in corpse soldiers. Hearing Zhu Xian's explanation, everyone instantly came to the same realization. Right. Why was the 1,000 Corpse sect notorious and spurned by the people of the world, and even destroyed several millennia ago? It was precisely because they refined corpse soldiers. Where did corpse soldiers come from? They came from the martial artists they killed, and the elite warriors' corpses stolen from cemeteries. Without corpse soldiers, the Thousand Corpse sect would be a second-tier sect, but with them, it could be compared to powerful forces like the Heaven's Sword sect and the Cloud Phoenix sect, and even go further beyond. Now, that youngster rivaled Jiozhong with his personal battle prowess, so when he unleashed his corpse soldiers, what would the outcome of the battle be? Ling Han said Jiozhong already lost, and definitely didn't say it without thinking. He wasn't on the Thousand Corpse sect side, but simply told the truth based on the facts. However, Jiozhong, who was the one involved, didn't realize at all. He still battled with the youngster fiercely, and as the two were well matched in strength, he was also fully enjoying himself. Being oppressed in the city for 10 days made him extremely out of sorts, and he just happened to need a great battle to vent some anger. 17th junior brother, why aren't you done yet? Too slow. That's right, what month and year will this fight go on until? The 9 youngsters of the Thousand Corpse sect all began to shout. That youngster revealed a fierce and savage smile, and said, since the senior brothers and sisters are impatient, this little brother will end this battle as soon as possible. He let out a battle cry, and as ear-piercing sounds came from afar, 4 caskets slid over. The Thousand Corpse sect's people fostered corpses, and the stronger they were, the more corpse soldiers they could foster. He was in the Flower Blossom tier, and could at most foster 6 corpse soldiers, but this demanded too much. 4 was already his limit. Meanwhile, normal Flower Blossom tier disciples could only foster 2. One needed to separate a part of the divine sense to control the corpse soldiers, and the more divine sense was separated, the more it affected the body. Therefore, unless one had extraordinary talent, it was better to pursue the quality of corpse soldiers, and only then the quantity. Go! That youngster shouted lightly, and 4 corpse soldiers immediately leapt out their caskets. Each one was rotten with only the skeleton left, but their bones were refined into the color of shiny silver, as if it were made out of metal. 3rd tier silver-armored corpse, equivalent to the Flower Blossom tier. That youngster stared at Jiozhong, and said, you're too weak. You're not qualified to be a follower of Sai Tu Yao. Bullsh. Jiozhong was furious. Although he didn't want to be his opponent's follower at all, he couldn't bear the opponent's disdain. He let out a battle cry, and a mirror appeared in his hand. Heptagold mirror, he shouted loudly and moved the mirror. Instantly, a flash of golden light surged out, shining towards Sai Tu Yao. Sai Tu Yao faced it indifferently, not even bothering to parry or evade. A corpse soldier stepped forward to block the flash of golden light. With a Z, a hole instantly opened up on the corpse soldier's ribs, with gas flowing out. Impressive. The corpse soldier's physique couldn't be compared to same-tier rare metals, but it was still quite formidable. However, it was penetrated with one attack, serving to show how terrifying this spirit tool was. Sai Tu Yao didn't care at all. He pointed at Jiozhong, and said, kill him. Instantly, the 4 corpse soldiers were like fierce wolves and tigers, pouncing towards Jiozhong. The Thousand Corpse sect was dreaded and hated by many large forces in the ancient times, which certainly stood to reason. It was not only because their actions were vile, but also because they were powerful. With regards to just personal battle prowess, Sai Tu Yao and Jiozhong were equal, but once corpse soldiers were out, their battle prowess wasn't on the same level at all anymore. The 4 corpse soldiers were in the 9th layer of the Flower Blossom tier, refined hundreds of times. Their physique was tough, and they did not fear death nor pain. They were literally human-shaped weapons, and which Flower Blossom tier cultivator wouldn't get scared seeing them? Jiozhong already unleashed that heptagold mirror, and his battle prowess skyrocketed a whole lot, but against the 4 corpse soldiers, he was really backed up, completely unable to cope. Weak, truly too weak. The 10 disciples of Thousand Corpse sect all shook their heads, appearing as if he were beneath contempt. On the top of the city wall, everyone was silent. Jiozhong wasn't really weak. He was at the 2nd layer of the Flower Blossom tier, but his personal battle prowess reached 7 stars, and after unleashing the heptagold mirror, his battle prowess skyrocketed to 10 stars. It couldn't be helped that his opponents were too strong and too many. 4 corpse soldiers were all at the 9th layer of the Flower Blossom tier in terms of battle prowess, neither fearing death nor pain, with tough defense. Nothing could be done. He was very soon in imminent danger, and would definitely be killed within 10 moves. Enough, Yin Shuiyang said in a deep voice. Bai Yuan laughed gently, and said, juniors are sparring, and the older generation shouldn't meddle. This lord said, stop. Yin Shuiyang roared, and his voice turned into waves that rolled towards the opposing side. This was a heaven-tier warrior's furious roar. If hit by the sound waves, it was guaranteed that those at the flower blossom tier would instantly faint. Damned fatso, you're too pushy. Bai Yuan attacked, and a deathly mist was waved out, blocking Yin Shuiyang's sound waves. Ah! Jiozhong let out a tragic scream. His arms and legs were grabbed separately by 4 corpse soldiers, and with a pull, he was torn into pieces. He had no iron sheet body, and having his limbs grabbed and pulled, he obviously died. 17th junior brother, why'd you dismember him? Wouldn't it be better to leave a complete body to refine a corpse soldier? Someone said with a laugh. Sai Tu Yarrow laughed, and said, a small fry at the second layer of the flower blossom tier refined into a corpse soldier would have limited strength. Moreover, he can still be refined into a corpse soldier even after being dismembered, just that a bit more effort is necessary. Who wants to battle? He looked at the people on the city wall, wearing an expression of disdain. How truly arrogant. However, Jiozhong's strength was already quite good, yet he was swiftly defeated at the hands of this person. This guy certainly had the ability to be proud. At least, those who had the same battle prowess as Jiozhong were not qualified to take up the challenge, or else, they'd just be giving up their lives. Chapter 560 West Regions Pang Xiongming. Chapter 560 West Regions Pang Xiongming. Reverie _ Hee, I heard that the Spirit Treasures Pavilion held a once in 3 or 5 year competition, and one of the competition rounds was martial arts. Are there really no other decent opponents? Sai Tu Yarrow continued to ridicule the crowd. Everyone was unconvinced. Although Sai Tu Yarrow won, it still didn't change their fate of being trapped, and since they were trapped and humiliated, they felt even worse. I'll battle you. A hot-headed young man leapt down, yet he was just a nobody that didn't even enter the flower blossom tier. Without even getting close, he was bitten to death by a corpse soldier, his blood splattering all over the ground. Sai Tu Yarrow played with the heptagold mirror that used to belong to Jiozhong, and smiled as he said, although that guy was pathetically weak, this spirit tool is really quite good, posing a threat to even peak-stage flower blossom tier warriors. Give back the treasure mirror. Someone leapt down the city walls and yelled at Sai Tu Yarrow. It was a 40-years-old man, who emitted an unfathomably deep presence. H, already at such an age. Don't butt in. Bai Yuan intervened, and swatted towards that person with a palm. Yin Shuiyang hurriedly intervened to save that person. Peng, with a loud bang, Bai Yuan's attack was neutralized. That middle-aged man's face turned pale, and he hurriedly ran back. He was Jiao family's spiritual infant tier elite. He originally wanted to retrieve the treasure, yet almost gave up his life doing so. Hee. Bai Yuan laughed. This old man will give you guys a chance. Those under 30 years of age can take the field to spar with these 10 small guys. Each person can participate in at most 10 fights, and with each win, this old man can let 10 people leave this city. Yin Shuiyang immediately sneered, and said, can your nonsense be trusted? Hee, then this old man will make an oath, Bai Yuan said, and raised his hand to make an oath as expected. Gods lay 3 feet above one's head. Dao oaths couldn't be recklessly made. Everyone instantly revealed an impulsive look. Winning one battle, they could receive 10 quotas to leave the city, and if they won a few battles, they could even bring their entire family out of this killing formation. I'll battle you. Someone immediately jumped out and attacked Sai Tu Yarrow. Court death. Sai Tu Yarrow sneered as 4 corpse soldiers demonstrated their power, instantly dismembering that person. Give us a decent opponent, or else there's no need to make such a bet, a disciple of the 1,000 Corpse sect said, revealing an impatient look. I'm not interested in killing ants. Atop the city gates, the youngsters looked at each other, revealing their burning fury. Quite arrogant, Herr. A youngster in a blue long garment said dully. His figure was lanky, and he had a moon-shaped mark on his forehead, flashing indistinctly. He stood amongst the crowd, unprepossessing, but once he spoke, his presence rose infinitely, instantly turning into a resplendent star from a passerby. Xiao, he leapt down and stood at the city gates. This opponent's not bad. With a glance, Saitu Yarrow revealed a joyful look. This follower's mine. The youngster in the blue raised his right hand. A silver bell was actually fastened to his wrist, looking somewhat girly. He shook his hand, and instantly ding, ding, ding sounds echoed, beautiful and pleasant to listen to. He looked at Saitu Yarrow and said, "I'm about to win, and I don't need any quotas to leave the city. You can kneel on the ground and kowtow forcefully 3 times. Saitu Yarrow's expression changed drastically, and he said, "Such arrogant manner. After I defeat you, I'll have you know what the pecking order is." The youngster in blue smiled slightly, and said, "Attack, I'll give you 3 moves." Arrogant. Saitu Yarrow snapped his finger. Charge. The 4 corpse soldiers immediately jumped out and attacked the youngster in blue garment. The youngster was extremely at ease, and as he pressed his right hand forward, the 4 corpse soldiers actually stopped all at once as if a freezing spell had been cast on them. What? Everyone cried out. What was going on? Ling Han activated the Eye of Truth and instantly saw everything clearly. The 4 corpse soldiers actually had threads attached to them. It was precisely these threads that tied them tightly, rendering them unable to do anything. Ling Han thought it was blood-sucking origin gold at first, but examining closely, he discovered that it was actually formed by origin power. Origin power formed threads that could tie down people. What sort of mystic arts was this? The youngster in blue clothing pulled with hands again, and the 4 corpse soldiers were instantly like marionettes, moving involuntarily. However, their movements were rigid, and that look was truly amusing. However, no one was able to laugh, feeling frightened on the inside. Those were 4 corpse soldiers, which were comparable to warriors at the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier, yet under the control of the young man, they were like marionettes. This was too ridiculous. Who is this guy? He seems really strong. Hiss, he's the one West Region's Spirit Treasures Pavilion asked to attend the martial arts contest. He seems to be called Pang Xiongming. Right, he's called Pang Xiongming. So powerful. Everyone cried out. Not many people could see that Pang Xiongming used threads of origin power to constrain the 4 corpse soldiers, but it was precisely because they didn't know that they felt it incredible, taking him for a celestial. Ling Han also nodded. This skill was certainly effective, but Pang Xiongming didn't appear that relaxed, either. After all, he was tying down 4 9th layer flower blossom tier corpse soldiers, while his cultivation was merely at the 5th layer of the flower blossom tier. This was also because he was freakish enough to fight a stronger opponent while being weaker, and even fight 1 against 4, however, this was also roughly his limit. Conversely, the 1000 corpse sect was truly freakish. A random disciple could rival the most outstanding geniuses of present age. Saitu Yarrow was also shocked at first, but his divine sense could be said to be connected with the 4 corpse soldiers, and he soon felt that the opponent's constraints were inadequate. Thus, he immediately laughed loudly. "Ha ha ha, thought you were going to be quite formidable." Peng, 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 peng. As expected, the 4 corpse soldiers shook off the constraints, attacking Pang Xiongming once again. Pang Xiongming was fearless. As his hands danced, he appeared extremely effeminate, looking as if a girl reincarnated in the wrong body. As he raised his hands, he formed orchid-like shapes with his fingers, appearing extremely gentle. The 4 corpse soldiers couldn't approach at all. As they got close, he would constrain them with his origin power and throw them out. Saitu Yarrow let out a battle cry and joined the fray. "Corpses flood heaven and earth," he bellowed as corrosive black-colored corpse chi spewed out from his entire body. "You think it'll work on me?" Pang Xiongming sneered, and spread out an origin power shield to block out the corpse chi. He was at the 5th layer of the flower blossom tier, so his origin power was naturally much thicker than Saitu Yarrow's. The corpse chi couldn't possibly penetrate it. Saitu Yarrow laughed loudly, and said, "This wasn't prepared for you." As the sound of his words fell, a blood-red ray shone from the eye sockets of the 4 corpse soldiers, emitting an even more violent presence. Peng, 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 they suddenly broke the constraint of Pang Xiongming's origin power threads, charging towards him. Pang Xiongming frowned slightly. After absorbing corpse chi, the 4 corpse soldiers' strength increased explosively at least by 1 star of battle prowess. It made him feel a modicum of pressure. Chapter 561, Fighting for You. Chapter 561, Fighting for You. Reverie _ The 4 corpse soldiers charged up together at Pang Xiongming. Each attack emitted an intense evil presence, just as if they were demons that climbed out of hell. From a certain sense, it certainly was so. Corpse soldiers and corpse chi were of the same origin. After the 4 corpse soldiers absorbed Sai Tu Yaro's personal corpse chi, their strength instantly grew explosively. Sai Tu Yaro, on the other hand, appeared somewhat dispirited, seeming to have expended a great deal. Just a few skeletons to deal with me? Pang Xiongming sneered. The moon-shaped mark let out a great ray of light, while his hands danced, confining the 4 corpse soldiers once again. Break, he shouted loudly, and with a snap, the hands and legs of 2 corpse soldiers were pulled off. Such formidable power. After corpse soldiers were refined, their bodies were extremely tough, approaching the level of same-tier rare metals. As for how close it could get, it would depend on the refinement heat and ingredients added. The elite corpses were only slightly higher in grade. As for the original ingredients being refined into a powerful corpse soldier, they naturally had a great price. Sai Tu Yaro's 4 corpse soldiers weren't extraordinary amongst the flower blossom tier beings, but being refined into 3rd-tier silver-armored corpse was already quite remarkable. Yet, Pang Xiongming instantly smashed 2 corpse soldiers, proof enough of Pang Xiongming's remarkableness. Damn it! Sai Tu Yaro roared, and the 4 corpse soldiers assaulted again. The corpse soldiers had no sense of pain anyway, so losing a hand and a leg only slightly affected their battle prowess. He also personally entered the battle, attacking Pang Xiongming with them. Pang Xiongming should be able to win, right? Zhu Xian asked Ling Han. Ling Han nodded, and said, if Sai Tu Yaro doesn't have any other trump cards, then Pang Xiongming's victory is assured. He made judgments on several occasions that already convinced and assured many people. Although almost no one knew Pang Xiongming, everyone was in the same boat, hoping that Pang Xiongming could emerge victorious. Some people simply wanted to regain some pride, while some thought that after Pang Xiongming won, there would be some spots to leave the city. Maybe they could get one from him. Originally, everyone was like a block of iron, willing to fight to the death for their survival, but once a feeble chance of survival appeared before them, quite a few people had a change of hearts. Pang Xiongming was better by a notch as expected, and after a few dozen moves, the 4 corpse soldiers were broken down. He also attacked Sai Tu Yaro with a heavy palm, but it didn't kill him. As a black-colored corpse chi swirled, Sai Tu Yaro retreated into the crowd and hacked out a mouthful of black blood, looking extremely feeble. Haha, 17th junior brother, looks like you have no chance with this follower. A youngster in a black gown laughed loudly, taking large strides forward. He then said, I'm Bian Hao, the 14th disciple under the sect master. Pang Xiongming looked coldly at the youngster in black gown, and said, move away, he still owes me 3 forceful kowtows. Youngster, do you really not want the 10 quotas to leave the city? Bai Yuan interrupted. I don't. Pang Xiongming declined without hesitation. T, you stupid. Atop the city, several people instantly cried out. You don't want it? Then give it to me. Motherfuck, where did this fool come from, actually willing to die here just to earn some respect? How extremely retarded. Ling Han, however, clapped and revealed a smile. This Pang Xiongming had quite a personality, he was worthy of saving. He looked coldly from the sidelines. Some people he planned to save, while some were only fit to turn into mire here. Hihi, since you're willing to give up 10 quotas, then that's your choice, Bai Yuan said with a smile. However, him kowtowing because you won is your own one-sided wish. He never agreed. How deceitful. But thinking it over, certainly, the bet of 3 kowtows was Pang Xiongming's unilateral statement. Sai Tu Yaro didn't agree, so a one-sided wish didn't work, right? Otherwise, with so many beauties in the world, if you liked one, couldn't you just bring one home? Pang Xiongming revealed a furious look, but didn't express his anger. He pointed coldly at Bian Hao and said, "Then I'll kill you." "Kill me? You're not qualified." Bian Hao laughed loudly. He had the cultivation of the 4th layer of the flower blossom tier, a layer higher than Saitu Yarrow, but the 1000 Corpse sect still relied on corpse soldiers. How many corpse soldiers he possessed and how strong the corpse soldiers were was the key. G1, with a grazing sound, 4 caskets slid over. Peng, 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 4 corpse soldiers jumped out. They were obviously 3rd-tier silver-armored corpses. Unless they possessed 3 lives corpse casket, they couldn't control corpse soldiers with power beyond their own tier. This also showed the scariness of the 3 lives corpse casket. Pang Xiongming obviously wouldn't be afraid, charging towards Bian Hao. The 4 corpse soldiers intercepted him, waving their large skeletal hands and raising a terrifying strong wind. Apparently, these 4 corpse soldiers were stronger. "I'm afraid they've reached 13 stars battle prowess." Ling Han nodded. "So powerful." Zhu Xian cried out in surprise. After martial artists died, only the corpse remained. Even if it underwent refinement, being able to unleash battle prowess that corresponded to its own tier was quite remarkable, and to surpass star levels, the corpse was either really extraordinary when it was alive, or a great price was paid to refine it. No matter how it looked, Bian Hao's 4 corpse soldiers were truly strong and gradually suppressed Pang Xiongming, giving him no time to attack Bian Hao. Peng! A trace of blood oozed from Pang Xiongming's waist. Bian Hao wielded a dagger, fresh blood still dripping from it. He licked it with his tongue, revealing a bloodthirsty savageness. His sneak attack succeeded just now, striking Pang Xiongming. However, under such circumstances, it didn't really count as a sneak attack. The people of the 1000 Corpse sect were one with corpses, and it could only be said that the 4 corpse soldiers gave Pang Xiongming too much pressure, creating a chance for Bian Hao's attack to hit. "Ha ha ha ha." Bian Hao laughed loudly. "You've already affected by my corpse poison, and you can only be saved by submitting to me. Otherwise, the corpse chi will slowly erode you, turning you into a bloodthirsty corpse soldier." Pang Xiongming ignored him, and flew directly to the top of the city wall, slumping down. He took out a pill bottle from a spatial ring and poured out a few soybean-sized medicinal pills to take, beginning to execute an art to expel the corpse chi. "Ignorance." Bian Hao sneered as he looked toward the city gates, and said, "Who's still not convinced and wants to battle with me?" He was nothing more than the 14th disciple of 1000 Corpse Sect's sect master. How could he be so arrogant? Everyone placed their gaze on Shenyuan Ziguang. This youngster had outstanding and domineering might, having the momentum to surpass Yarrow Huiyu and other prodigies who had already made a name for themselves. Moreover, his cultivation of the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier was at the top of the younger generations. If he took the field, victory was definitely assured. Shenyuan Ziguang revealed a proud look. He originally didn't want to take the field so soon. A genius like him should obviously intervene at the last moment, shining on the entire field. However, Million Treasures City had no other stronger youngsters, and if he didn't step up now, the enemy's challenge would soon be over. He smiled faintly at Helion Zun Shui, and said, "This battle, I'll fight it for you." Chapter 562, The Good Quality of Others. Chapter 562, The Good Quality of Others. Reverie _ Damn, he doesn't even forget to pick up girls when taking the field. The eyes of the young ladies nearby lit up in excitement as they cupped their hands and placed them in front of their chest, desperately yelling out Shenyuan Ziguang's name, wishing they could throw themselves at him. "Idiot." Ling Han shook his head. "Idiot." Helion Zun Shui imitated him while sticking her tongue out. After all, she had to add in some individual characteristic. "Next time you meet this idiot, just beat him up." Ling Han encouraged. "But I'm scared of hurting my hand," Helion Zun Shui said weakly. Ling Han pondered, then took out the brick, shoving it into her hand, and said, "Then use this to smack him." Helion Zun Shui was instantly elated, and said, "All right." She gripped the brick and tried out her strength in waving it, looking eager to give it a try. Shenyuan Ziguang scored a rebuff, and his expression turned gloomy. No matter whether it was martial arts or relationships, he was successful in every endeavor, But now, he not only was unable to completely suppress Ling Han in martial arts, he also was unable to conquer Hellion Zun Shui, making him out of sorts. We'll see when I sweep clean these 1,000 corpse sect dregs and win over endless glory. Shenyuan Zi Guang leapt down. Looking loftily at Bian Hao, he said, if you can block one move, I'll spare your life. How arrogant. Bian Hao possessed 4 corpse soldiers that reached 13 stars in battle prowess. Was this not enough to block Shenyuan Zi Guang's one move? Bian Hao obviously burst into anger. He was a personal disciple of the 1,000 corpse sect's sect master, proud and arrogant. However, someone actually looked down upon him, so how could Bi tolerate it? He was just about to attack, but felt his shoulder sink. Someone held him back. It was Bai Yuan. Venerable Bai, please let me battle, he said. Bai Yuan shook his head, and said, you're not his opponent, let the third go. What? The disciples of the 1,000 corpse sect all cried out. Although they weren't all here today, the third, in other words, the third disciple of 1,000 corpse sect master, Zhu Tianji, was the strongest in their party. The strongest card was already going to be dealt now? Was the opponent that strong? Zhu Tianji had been napping all this time. Now, he finally opened his eyes and stared at Shenyuan Zi Guang for a short while, revealing a bellicose expression, and said, this person is a good opponent. I don't have the certainty to win. Bian Hao and the other disciples were shocked again. Even third senior brother said so. Was Shenyuan Zi Guang really that strong? Second senior brother should be able to win firmly, not to mention great senior brother, whose talents are peerless, such that all of us together aren't as good as him. Zhu Tianji said with a smile. Bian Hao and the other disciples all nodded, firmly believing Zhu Tianji's words. Every one of them were geniuses, but they still idolized their great senior brother, who knew just how strong this person was. Zhu Tianji walked out in large strides. His stature was very tall, but he was very sturdy. At first glance, he looked somewhat like a youngster that cut firewood in the mountains. Your corpse soldiers? Shenyuan Zi Guang asked. When I need to use them, they'll appear, Zhu Tianji said indifferently. Shenyuan Zi Guang sneered, and said, not using corpse soldiers, you'll be instantly killed. Haha, if so, then I can only blame my inferior skills. Zhu Tianji laughed loudly. When experts fight, they battled with their wits first before using their hands. Apparently, Shenyuan Zi Guang also didn't dare to underestimate Zhu Tianji, or else he wouldn't need to provoke him with words, and simply just attack. Shenyuan Zi Guang placed one hand behind his back, and said, since you're not using corpse soldiers, I'll let you face me without one of my hands. This arrogance. Zhu Tianji revealed a hint of anger. The opponent wanted to force him to use corpse soldiers with just one hand? How confident could he be? He snorted, opened his mouth, and reached in with one hand, pulling out a black-colored longsword. What the hell? Everyone atop the city was shocked. You were really that poor that you didn't even have a spatial ring, hiding a sword inside your body? Ling Han, however, revealed an astounded look, and muttered, the legendary nurturing a tool with one's own body is real. What's nurturing a tool with one's own body? Zhu Xian'o asked. She, like Ling Han, was also disguised, so she obviously didn't call herself Xian'e and Ling Han as Brother Han or Master Han. Nourishing a spirit tool within the body means to use one's own blood and qi to nourish the spirit tool constantly. This allows the spirit tool to become more powerful, and even manifest a tool spirit, Ling Han said, but immediately shook his head and added, no matter what spirit tool, the moment it's shaped, it exists for battle. As a vicious object, nourished within the body, it is extremely likely to kill oneself. Nourishing a tool with one's own body was a risk, but if one could stick it out, then the tool thus nourished would be extremely powerful. Atop the city wall, everyone listened to Ling Han's explanation, nodding repeatedly. Some people were also secretly guessing Ling Han's identity. He clearly looked 24 to 25 years old yet knew so much secret knowledge. His background was probably extremely remarkable. Shenyuan Zi Guang, however, revealed a curious look, and said, nourishing a tool with one's own body. Hehe, that's a first, let me try it out. Zhu Tianji held his sword in hand, and his listless expression was instantly swept clean, emitting a feverish battle intent as he shouted loudly, "As you wish." He pushed off fiercely and shot towards Shenyuan Ziguang. As the black sword was brandished, 17 flashes of sword chi formed, tangling toward Shenyuan Ziguang like whips. "Interesting," Shenyuan Ziguang muttered, still with one hand behind his back. He flicked gently with his other hand, and a fire tiger appeared, biting at the sword chi. "What a joke! You want to neutralize my black demon sword?" Zhu Ji Tian sneered. "Can I not?" Shenyuan Ziguang said arrogantly. That fire lion swelled up abruptly and became 10 m large, emitting a terrifying baleful presence. Condensing chi into ray. Bai Yuan gaze tightened. This youngster is truly remarkable, almost forming a ray, yet he intentionally suppressed it, obviously wanting cultivate more flashes of chi. How truly bold and daring. Rays crushed chi in quality. At the time, when Rain Emperor cultivated Fist Ray, with the cultivation of the first layer of the Flower Blossom tier, he fought a 9th layer Flower Blossom tier warrior and a King tier demonic ape. It was clear how powerful rays were. This could increase the battle prowess of martial artist at the core, but Shenyuan Ziguang suppressed the condensing of ray forcibly. On one hand, it showed his great martial arts talent, and on the other, his great ambition of not settling for 22 flashes of chi. In certain aspects, geniuses were all the same, existing for the sake of breaking the limits. This fire lion wasn't a flash of ki, it was condensed from 22 flashes of chi. However, it was different from the integratedness of a ray, but was more like a combination. Ling Han nodded. The good quality of others could help develop oneself. Shenyuan Ziguang's thought process was very good, simulating chi into a ray. This way, he could continue to cultivate chi while increasing its power. Truly remarkable pioneering. Chapter 563, Victory. Chapter 563, Victory. Reverie _ Shenyuan Ziguang and Zhu Tianji carried out a fierce battle. Both of them held back, one only using one hand, and the other not using corpse soldiers. Apparently, if Shenyuan Ziguang was forced to use 2 hands first, then he would be the one at a disadvantage. Conversely, if he could, with one hand, force Zhu Tianji to use corpse soldiers, then he would have the advantage to a certain degree. Of course, this advantage wasn't much, because the 1000 corpse sect's battle prowess mainly relied on corpse soldiers. If Shenyuan Ziguang could only unleash 30% of his battle prowess with one hand, then Zhu Tianji at most could unleash 20% of his battle prowess without using corpse soldiers. As expected, without battling for 10 rounds, Zhu Tianji was forced to summon corpse soldiers. 5 corpse soldiers. Flower Blossom tier's limit was to control 6 corpses, and he reached 5. Despite it being only one more, when it was near the limit, this small advantage could be infinitely enlarged. 5 corpse soldiers were definitely stronger than 4, and not just by a bit. Shenyuan Ziguang naturally didn't dare to be careless anymore, maneuvering both hands to battle against Zhu Tianji and the 5 corpse soldiers. The outcome of the battle couldn't be decided in a short while, serving to show how terrifying these two youngsters were. The older generations can't even compare. The youngsters nowadays are truly terrifying. As expected, it's the prosperous time of martial arts. Exceptional talents from the younger generation keep emerging. Unless one was a prodigy of the same generation, one probably wouldn't be qualified to contend with these youngsters. Atop the city wall, quite a few people cried out, exclaiming at the power of Shenyuan Ziguang and Zhu Tianji. However, it should be rare for such powerful youngsters like them to appear. Yes, in the middle state, only Yarou Huiyu, Meng Daiwu, and some others that could be counted one's fingers have reached such heights. Definitely not beyond 10 people, a very experienced man concluded extremely surely, making everyone convinced as they nodded their heads ceaselessly. After Ling Han heard that, he couldn't help but laugh. He then said, "Hu Niu, show them a little of what you've got." "Okay, I'll show them Niu's awesomeness." Hu Niu leapt down the city gates, placed her hands on her hips, and said, "Who wants to fight Niu?" After the people of 1000 Corpse sect looked at each other, they all laughed loudly. This was only a 6 to 7-year-old little girl that they could kill by extending a finger. If they were to attack this little girl, then that would be too shameful. They all ignored her and overlooked that Hunyao jumped down from the city wall, not walking out of it. However, Bai Yuan revealed an astounded look because he couldn't see through Hunyao's cultivation. If she truly was just an ordinary little lady, then how could she possibly jump down from such a high city gate and be alright? The youngsters were careless and overlooked it, but he wouldn't be. He was much more experienced compared to these youngsters. Living cautiously till now was the only secret to becoming a heaven-tier elite, so he obviously wouldn't overlook it just because he'd become elderly. He pondered, and said, Bian Hao, you go fight her. Venerable Bai, me? Bian Hao felt wronged. Why did he have to go? This was truly just a little girl. Taking one step forward was already extremely embarrassing. Don't be careless, Bai Yuan warned. Bian Hao revealed an astounded expression. Hearing Venerable Bai's tone, it was as if this little girl was quite remarkable. He finally withdrew the reluctance within his heart, taking large strides forward, and said, Little girl, you want to fight me? Hunyao crossed her arms before her chest, and said in a delicate voice, Not fight, beat. It made many people atop the city wall laugh loudly. This little girl looked delicate like jade, truly attracting people's affection, while some people with special fetishes began to drool. Ha 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 ha. Sai Tu Yarrow and the others laughed loudly, while Bian Hao could no longer remain calm. I'll let you have one move, Bian Hao said. Thank you, Wunkle. Hunyao bowed in a lowly manner. Hanging around Ling Han a lot, she also learned how to trick people. Just as Bian Hao was about to nod, a blur flashed before his eyes as a small figure appeared before him. Peng, he felt pain on his face, and his body instantly escaped control, sitting abruptly onto the ground. Everyone looked at Hunyao with shock. This girl had looked like an adorable little princess just now, but in an instant, she unleashed her attack with such a terrifying speed, knocking Bian Hao to the ground. It was as if she wasn't the same person. This clearly wasn't some little princess, but a small devil. 1111. Hunyao snickered, revealing 2 rows of snow-white teeth, and said to Bian Hao, Wunkle, what happened to you, not feeling well? Bian Hao truly wanted to die at this moment, finally understanding that Bai Yuan's warning wasn't without reason. This little girl was certainly vicious, and her battle prowess couldn't be measured with logic. He leapt up again and let out a battle cry. 4 corpse soldiers instantly arrived all together, attacking towards Hunyao. Ayaya, Wunkle, weren't you going to let Niao have one move? Hunyao's figure was agile, running while yelling. Despite the attacks of 4 corpse soldiers coming from all sides, it was like she was taking a stroll, appearing extremely relaxed. Moreover, the little girl wasn't to be trifled with, either. Her small hand turned into a palm and shot toward a corpse soldier. So what if corpse soldiers were refined hundreds of times? When Hunyao was only in the spiritual pedestal tier, her claws could tear her target with the destructive power of the Flower Blossom tier's 2 stars battle prowess. Now that she advanced into the Flower Blossom tier, these claws were naturally even more terrifying. With a Kai, the skeletal framework that was only slightly inferior to rare metals of the same tier was instantly torn apart with ease, shredded into shattered bone scraps in a few moves by Hunyao. Pu. Everyone spurted out. This little girl was too freakish. How could she be so strong? Was this any weaker than Shenyuan Ziguang? Amongst the prodigies of the middle state, another person must be added, the experienced person from before exclaimed. What, didn't you say middle state's prodigies weren't beyond 10? The experienced person was humiliatingly proven wrong, and his face instantly flushed. Earlier, he'd said that 10 prodigies like Shenyuan Ziguang and Zhu Tianji couldn't be found in the entire middle state, but now? A random little girl that came out was strong to such a heaven-defying degree. After Hunyao easily took care of the 4 corpse soldiers, Bian Hao could only admit defeat. He couldn't win even with corpse soldiers, let alone without their help. Hunyao laughed loudly, and said, anyone else? Niao wants to fight 10 alone. The side of 1,000 corpse sect involuntarily sank into silence. Although Bian Hao could only rank at number 8 or 9 in strength amongst the 10 disciples, Hunyao was too relaxed just now. Thus, to suppress this little girl, Zhu Tianji probably had to be sent out. The problem was that Zhu Tianji was still fighting fiercely with Shenyuan Ziguang, and it had to wait. Bai Yuan could only say, I'll count as if you've won 9 times. For the 10th, the third will fight you after this round. Chen-ph, want Nyo to wait? Then I won't play. Hu Nyo stomped her feet in discontent and returned. Atop the city wall, everyone's gazes were filled with shock when they looked towards Hu Nyo, and some older figures already wanted to take this little girl as a disciple. This little girl was so strong now, how terrifying would she become after she grew up? Amongst the elites of the world in the future, there was definitely a place for her. Chapter 564, Knocked Out by a Brick. Chapter 564, Knocked Out by a Brick. Reverie _ What are you guys staring at Hu Nyo like that for? No matter how much you guys look, you guys won't get any food. Hu Nyo swept everyone with a warning glance. Could these people be thinking of the food on her? They were too bad. The experienced person began to judge again and concluded, middle states geniuses, adding this little girl should be all. He seemed to have quite the reputation, so despite being humiliatingly proven wrong once, those words still received the recognition of many people, who started expressing their agreement. Not bad, such a little girl is definitely hard to come by in 10 millennia. Too freakish, absolutely unimaginable. Ling Han listened, couldn't help but laugh, and said, Hai Nyo, you go down to fight. As Helian Zun Shui heard it, her face instantly turned pale. She hurriedly shook her head, and said, I can't. I said you can, so you definitely can. Don't forget, I gave you a brick, and you can smash with that. Ling Han encouraged her. Helian Zun Shui didn't know the differences of tears, or else if she thought she was a normal little girl, she would never dare fight with a flower blossom tear opponent. However, now that she didn't know, she was fearless, nodding ignorantly. In her mind, Ling Han was the first person she saw when she opened her eyes, so she naturally felt close to him and would listen to him. Ling Han nodded, and shouted towards the bottom, We've won 90 quotas now, right? Bai Yuan nodded indifferently, and said, Correct. Then let's win a bit more. Next, this big chick will battle. Ling Han pointed at Helian Zun Shui. Instantly, everyone's gazes moved over, then, they shook their heads simultaneously. No way. This girl didn't have a shred of origin power fluctuation. Wouldn't letting her take the field to battle just be feeding the opponent? You dare. Shenyuan Ziguang could actually look and hear in all directions amidst a fierce battle, immediately yelling at Ling Han. Ling Han picked his ears and muttered, None of your damn business. Bai Yuan, however, stared at Helian Zun Shui, and revealed an expression of deep thought. He also couldn't see through this girl, but compared to the little girl earlier, it was completely different. Hu Nyo was a deep pit like a great sea that he couldn't see the bottom of, while this girl was like she was covered by a layer of mist. Strange, too strange. Helian Zun Shui looked at the height of the city walls, and immediately said weakly, I can't go down. It's too high, I'll fall to my death. Everyone burst into laughter. You guys were definitely clowns invited by a monkey to come jest. Ling Han grabbed onto Helian Zun Shui and brought her down the city walls. He then smiled and said, Go on. He naturally wasn't worried at all. Helian Zun Shui's true cultivation was in the high stage of the heaven tier, and she had the bloodline of true dragon. If her battle prowess was fully unleashed, even Bai Yuan might be suppressed with a single hand. Helian Zun Shui walked forward timidly while grabbing tightly onto a brick. Everyone couldn't help but laugh at this look. Another opponent that looked like they couldn't stand a single blow. Bai Yuan pondered, and said, Fifth, you go. What? Bian Hao and the others were greatly shocked. The fifth, Shao Zhon, was third strongest elite amongst them, and he was going to be sent out now? Shao Zhon, a dapper and handsome man. Divine light flashed across his body, looking extremely holy. He didn't appear like a 1,000 corpse sect disciple at all. He walked out and looked at Helian Zun Shui. Then, revealing a breathtaking expression, he said, Beauty, be my Tao companion and I will take you to the pinnacle of the world. A rascal. Helian Zun Shui shivered as she scolded him. So pure, I like it. He laughed loudly, leaping before her and reaching out towards Helian Zun Shui's face. You dare. Shenyuan Ziguang roared angrily. This was the lady he'd set his eyes on. He swore that he would definitely cut off Shozhon's hand, and if Shozhon really touched Helian Zun Shui, he would break his bones into ash. Mph, fighting against me, you still have the heart to look elsewhere? Zhu Tianjie sneered, and launched consecutive deadly attacks, instantly suppressing Shenyuan Ziguang. Get lost, damn rascal. Helian Zun Shui screamed, swinging the brick fiercely towards the other, and she actually closed her eyes and turned her head around, as if leaving it up to chance. Peng. The problem was that she actually landed the hit. Wasn't it Shuo Xian's fault for being frivolous and touching her face? Face to face, once Helian Zun Shui's brute force was mustered up, that terrifying power was such that Linghan couldn't block it, and even Hunyo would have to surrender. Ah! Shozhon screamed tragically and lay on the ground. A hole opened up on his forehead as he lay straight and still. What? Everyone's faces twitched. This girl really knocked out a flower blossom tier elite with a brick. Physical cultivator. Bai Yuan blurted 2 words out. The finally knew why he couldn't see through Helian Zun Shuesha was a physical cultivator. Her power was condensed in every inch of her flesh and couldn't be sensed until the moment it was unleashed. So, she's a physical cultivator with shocking brute force. Yes, in close combat, physical cultivators have the absolute advantage. Haha, it's that guy's fault for being lustful, wanting to take advantage of her but ending up knocked out by a brick. Yes, if flower blossom tier warriors don't guard their bodies with origin power, their defense isn't much higher than normal people's. Everyone nodded one after another, thinking that Shuo Xian lost truly wrongly. He really lost to his own lust. Mph, since you're an expert, why pretend to be in such a delicate state? A girl from the Thousand Corpse sect stepped out. She was the 9th, and her name was Han Jiu Yun. Although the 7th was defeated, it wasn't because Shuo Xian's strength fell short. She was also remarkably beautiful, but was far inferior compared to Helian Zun Shui. It couldn't be helped, even if their looks were on the same level. Helian Zun Shui was a genuine heaven tier elite. After all, how could a flower blossom tier warrior possibly rival that natural temperament? Han Jiu Yun immediately let out a battle cry and summoned her corpse soldiers. While she also had 4 of them, they were a little stronger than Bianhao's corpse soldiers, at least possessing 14 stars in battle prowess. Despite it being only a difference of 1 star, on top of this amount, Bianhao would definitely be crushed by her. Helian Zun Shui trembled. What the hell were these skeletons? It made her scared. Peng, 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 peng. The 4 corpse soldiers came attacking noisily with monstrous viciousness. Helian Zun Shui let out a scream, waving the brick in her hand to swat the corpse soldiers. Pa, 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 pa. The 4 corpses were instantly sent flying, losing their heads and limbs. In short, the 4 corpse soldiers were all incapacitated at once. Pu, everyone spurted out again. A great expert. This was too ridiculous. Sending 4 corpse soldiers flying with a few casual palms, she was even scarier than the little girl earlier. Looking at her age, she seemed just about 20 years old, so how could she be so strong? Shenyuan Ziguang's face twitched. He'd originally thought Helian Zun Shui was just a delicate and weak lady, but never thought that her brute force was terrifying to such a degree. The 4 corpse soldiers were instantly smashed into dregs, something he might not even be able to do. Genius, she's even more freakish than Shenyuan Ziguang and Yarou Hui Yu. Chapter 565, Flaunting Strength. Chapter 565, Flaunting Strength. Reverie _ The experienced man earlier was proven wrong once again. This girl who looked somewhat klutzy and cute was clearly more terrifying than the little girl. Her battle prowess was astounding, proven by her demolishing 4 corpse soldiers in only 1 round. Amongst Middle States geniuses, there's going to be 1 more new person, he exclaimed. There won't be any more similar freaks, right? Someone interrupted. Definitely not, the man said with extreme certainty. 2 such exceptional talent emerging in 1 day was already a great miracle, so how could it possibly happen over and over again? Helian Zun Shui was still in shock, and as she looked at 4 skeletons that were smacked into disarray, she couldn't help but pat her flat chest, saying curiously, "So I'm actually this remarkable?" Han Jiu Yun was now in a dilemma. The strongest thing about the 1,000 Corpse sect was definitely corpse soldiers, but 4 of them were smacked into dregs at the same time. If she charged up, wouldn't she just be giving up her life? However, seeing her opponent's figure, which hadn't a single bit of the aura of an expert, having just surprising brute force, if she retreated without fighting, wouldn't that be too embarrassing? Ninth, back down, Bai Yuan said. He was a heaven-tier elite with shrewd insight, and obviously saw that though Hellion Zun Shui lacked battle experience, her strength was too powerful. She only needed to battle with her instincts to win against her opponent because her level had already surpassed the Flower Blossom tier. Even if the third went up to face her, it would be useless. The first or the second had to come. We all forfeit the next few battles. Lady, you're quite good. Do you have any interest in joining our sect? Bai Yuan began to poach. This muddled and klutzy girl seemed to be easily deceived. Don't want to. Hellion Zun Shui hurriedly shook her head as she looked at the top of the city wall towards Ling Han, revealing a pitiful expression. She wanted to go back, but it was too high. Ling Han guided patiently and said, "Jump up on your own, you can do it." Hellion Zun Shui kept shaking her head, and said, "It's too high, I can't jump up." She had absolutely no confidence. "If you don't try, how would you know?" Ling Han said with a smile. Hellion Zun Shui pouted and leapt with all her effort. Xiao, she instantly soared into the sky, not only leaping far beyond the city walls, but also far beyond it, turning into a small black dot. After a short while, peng, a ball of light suddenly exploded in the skies. Not good, she bumped into the city's large formation. Though the Great Formation is mainly for defense, ramming it on one's own accord will still trigger the Great Formation's impact. Even deity transformation tier elites would be annihilated. It's over. Peng. At this moment, a figure fell heavily downwards, plunging into the city walls. Under the powerful impact, a section of the city walls collapsed. Amidst the dust-filled air, a silhouette walked out, staggering. And who else could it be other than Hellion Zun Shui? Everyone's faces twitched involuntarily. This girl rammed into the great city-guarding formation. Just how powerful was her physique for her to be as if nothing happened? Oh. Hellion Zun Shui covered her head and groaned, but she was unscathed from top to bottom, leaving everyone speechless. Ling Han also came to a painful realization. No wonder he was still firmly dominated by her despite losing her memory and being unable to use origin power. This wasn't a coincidence. Rather, this girl's cultivation had reached a terrifying degree. Hellion Zun Shui was like a child who had been wronged as she walked to Ling Han's side and pulled on the hem of his clothes, looking like she was about to cry. Looking on, everyone was speechless. If anything, or anyone, were to cry, it would be the 1,000 Corpse sect at the bottom and the great city-guarding formation in the sky. Ling Han looked down, and said to Bai Yuan, "Now, we have 190 quotas, right?" "Right." Bai Yuan nodded, looking somewhat displeased. He absolutely never would have thought. He originally wanted to toughen these 10 youngsters so as to avoid them being too proud and arrogant, but now it seemed like they were struck quite hard mentally. Shenyuan Ziguang was alright, at least being rivaled by Zhu Tianjie, but the following appearance of Hu Niu and Hellion Zun Shui absolutely just trampled on their confidence. A 6 to 7-year-old little girl and a brute force freak, battling at the same age, they were absolutely invincible beings. Now, the 1,000 Corpse sect was pressed for a win to boost their morale and increase the confidence of these 9 youngsters. Ling Han leapt down from atop the city wall, and said, "Then I'll be you guys' opponent, and earn a few more quotas to leave the city." Where did this youngster's confidence come from? Bai Yuan smiled grimly. Shenyuan Ziguang was in the 9th layer of the Flower Blossom tier, which was rarely seen at this age segment. Moreover, he cultivated 22 flashes of qi, having terrifying strength. He couldn't see through Hu Niu and Hellion Xuanxue, and those he was unable to see through were obviously out of the ordinary. But Ling Han? 2nd layer of the Flower Blossom tier, obvious at a glance. Even if this boy could surpass 10 stars battle prowess, he would only have 20 stars battle prowess, and about half of the people here could crush him. Alright, this boy could be used to boost their morale. Bai Yuan nodded, and said, "4th, you go." The 4th, Tian Xiuning, ranked 2nd in strength amongst the 10 people. He was at the 8th layer of the flower blossom tier, and the amount of corpse soldiers he could control also reached 5. He was not much inferior to Zhu Tianjie. Directly letting Tian Xiuning take the field was a plan to acquire an overwhelming victory to boost morale. Tian Xiuning walked out in large strides. He was nearly 30 years old, tall and sturdy, yet naturally bald. His forehead was glossy and didn't even grow any eyebrows. His entire face gave people an extremely strange feeling. Seeing this, Ling Han couldn't help but smile and say, cultivating to the point of balding, "Your lordship is extraordinary as expected." The corner of Tian Xiuning's mouth twitched involuntarily as he said, "Shoot your mouth off like that and ridicule carelessly more. This is only attracting disaster for your own life." "Oh, you want to take my life?" Ling Han said with a smile. "Just from your words just now, you should die." Tian Xiuning said coldly. "You truly have no sense of humor. Did you break your brain cultivating?" Ling Han said with a smile. "Impudence." Tian Xiuning attacked with his palm, swatting at Ling Han. Black-colored corpse chi turned into a skeleton, biting towards Ling Han. Ling Han flicked casually with his fingers, and this skeleton instantly burst into pieces. He smiled slightly, and said, "Better summon the corpse soldiers. Your bit of strength truly isn't enough." Pu. Looking on, quite a few people spurted out. Although they only exchanged one move, and both parties didn't use their full strength, Tian Xiuning was in the 8th layer of the flower blossom tier. To be able to neutralize his attack casually like that, Ling Han's strength was not to be underestimated. Tian Xiuning looked coldly at Ling Han. After a short while, he finally said, "Since you want to be tortured, then I'll help you." He let out a battle cry, and instantly, a long sound went off as 5 caskets slid over, and out jumped 5 corpse soldiers. "There are actually 5 corpse soldiers," an old fogey cried out. "The difference of a single corpse, the strength difference is worlds apart. Now, that youngster in danger." Chapter 566, Bone Sword. Chapter 566, Bone Sword. Reverie _ Ling Han made a hooking motion with his finger, and said, "Bring it on." "As you wish." Tian Xiuning let out a battle cry and controlled the 5 corpse soldiers to attack Ling Han. When the 5 corpses pounced at Ling Han, covering his entire figure, everyone began to shake their heads. This youngster was obviously dead for sure. This wasn't the first person to die today, and wouldn't be the last, so everyone didn't take it to heart. Who would care about a person who wasn't a well-known figure? However, the scene that followed made them dumbstruck. Ling Han's figure was actually extremely slick, wandering freely within the enclosing attacks of the 5 corpse soldiers. He would block with his hand the attacks that really couldn't be dodged, and with a flicker of golden light, the corpse soldier that assaulted him would be jolted back. How's it possible? Isn't this guy only in the 2nd layer of the flower blossom tier? How can his strength be so terrifying? Those corpse soldiers are about 14 stars in battle prowess, right? Definitely 14 stars. But this boy can parry it just by waving his hands casually. Such power is too terrifying. A genius, absolutely a genius. Definitely no inferior to Shenyuan Ziguang and Yarou Yu. The face of the experienced old man from earlier twitched. In a short while, 3 super geniuses ran out, slapping him fiercely on the face. He wished there was a large hole in the ground for him to worm into. "You do have some strength." Tian Xiuning smiled grimly and joined the battle. The weapon he used was a bone sword. Judging by the shape of it, it looked like it was made from a large-sized beast's polished femur. On top of it were vein-like patterns that were definitely naturally formed. Once activated, the vein-like patterns shone and linked together, unleashing an astounding ray of light. It was as if Ling Han saw a massive beast floating on top of the blade, and the terrifying size of the beast seemed to be able to overwhelm even heaven and earth. His eyes lit up involuntarily as he said, "This was refined by extracting the femur of Ba Xia, right?" According to the legends, the true dragon had 9 offspring, but each one was different because they were conceived with different beasts and each offspring only inherited part of the true dragon bloodline. Ba Xia was one of them. Its shape was like a fish, and its head was like a lion's. Yet, It grew a pair of horns and its entire body was covered with dragon scales. Even if it only had a trace of the true dragon bloodline, the true dragon was the leader of all beasts in the world. It could be seen that its status towered above the masses, and possessing a shred of true dragon's bloodline was extremely remarkable and very hard to come by. Tian Xiuning revealed an astounded look, and said, "You actually recognize this sword?" He only learned of the legend of Ba Xia after being bestowed with the sword. However, the Ba Xia's bloodline was even more diluted, or else it would really be the dragon's son. It couldn't possibly be killed so easily and have its femur extracted and made into a sword. The bloodline is thinned and the vein-like patterns are mixed, nothing much to it. Ling Han made another evaluation. Instantly, Tian Xiuning's nose twisted in anger. "You were shocked at first, but went on with, nothing much to it. How could he possibly accept this?" He snorted, and said, "It's more than enough to kill you." He waved his sword and slashed at Ling Han. This bone sword was made from the femur of a descendant of a divine beast and refined by adding several precious ingredients. It could be called outstanding amongst 6th-tier spirit tools. With this strike, a massive phantom image of a beast surfaced immediately, pouncing towards Ling Han. Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, "This sword's not bad, I'm taking it." The demon birth sword couldn't be displayed randomly, so replacing it with this word wasn't a bad idea. Impudence. Tian Xiuning was furious. This guy was too arrogant, actually viewing him as nothing. Ling Han carried out the demon fairy step, arriving directly before Tian Xiuning and attacking with both fists repeatedly. The 5 corpse soldiers became decorations. Roaring angrily, they charged back, chasing behind Ling Han. Now, it became a head-on fight between Tian Xiuning and Ling Han. The former wasn't terrified, waving his sword while 9 flashes of sword chi formed. Under the blessing of the bone sword, each flash of sword chi became a terrifying silk 2 meters long, slashing towards Ling Han. Ling Han obviously wouldn't fear it, directly brandishing his fists in counterattack. Peng, 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 these flashes of sword chi were instantly demolished. Seeing this scene, everyone covered their heads and cried out. This was too inconceivable. The 9 flashes of sword chi were all set off by the bone sword, and their sharpness was equivalent to the sword's. This was the reason why everyone sought a first-class spirit tool. However, Ling Han shattered the sword chi with a single punch, and his fist actually wasn't injured at all. Was that still a body of flesh and blood? Tian Xiuning was also shocked. He originally thought that Ling Han blocking with his fists head-on would cause blood to splatter across the skies, but never would he have thought not a damn thing happened. He couldn't help but doubt the bone sword in his hand. Was this truly refined from the bone of the leftover species of a divine beast? No need to doubt. This is because my fists are harder, Ling Han said, smiling. He cultivated indestructible heaven's scroll, and if he truly attained the diamond tier body, his physique would definitely be tougher than a true dragon's. Now, though he was at the iron sheet tier, the opponent's bone sword was only refined from the bone of a distant descendant of the Ba Xia that couldn't be considered even a divine beast's child, so how could it possibly harm him? To threaten his 6th-tier iron sheet body, a 7th-tier spirit tool had to be used. While talking, Ling Han brandished both fists repeatedly, forcing Tian Xiuning to retreat. It was very interesting. Tian Xiuning retreated and Ling Han chased, while 5 corpse soldiers were behind, forcibly turning this ganging up into a one-on-one fight and chase. Haha, this youngster discovered the corpse soldier's greatest weakness. Atop the city will, someone clapped and laughed. That's right. Corpse soldiers' weakness is that they're not fast enough. After all, they're just a corpse, and can't execute movement arts. However, simply unleashing their power, they are equivalent to someone in the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier, and there aren't many that can surpass them in speed. This youngster's movement art is out of the ordinary. Many things were actually easily exposed, but even if they were thoroughly clear, there might not be people able to accomplish them. None knew the weight of another's burden. If one were to personally take it up, one might only be able to groan. Tian Xiuning was shocked. In this way, the 5 corpse soldiers were practically useless, and he now faced Ling Han alone. The majority of 1000 corpse sects' battle prowess came from corpses, and if they couldn't be brought into Paley, their personal strength obviously decreased greatly. He was actually quite extraordinary, having the cultivation of the 8th layer of the flower blossom tier and battle prowess reaching even 15 stars, which was enough to look down upon people of the same age. However, he encountered a freak like Ling Han, so he could only be miserable. Ancient bone patterns accumulated on Ling Han's fists. Close combat was now his forte, and as the power of physical cultivation burst forth, it was not much different from origin power. Each fist shot out like it was driving piles. Only physical cultivators could attack so quickly, and when origin power cultivators couldn't keep up in endurance, they could only put more effort on chi, replacing speed with quantity. Peng, 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 peng. With 100 consecutive punches, the bone sword in Tian Xiaoning's hand instantly slipped out, and Ling Han reached out to grab it. "Give it back," Tian Xiaoning hurriedly shouted. This was a treasure that the Lord Sect Master personally bestowed on him. Ling Han shook his head, and said, "It's a waste of this spirit tool to leave it in your hand." He turned around and stared at the 5 corpse soldiers that charged over. Chapter 567, Combined Sword Chi. Chapter 567, Combined Sword Chi. Reverie _ Ling Han charged towards the 5 corpse soldiers and brandished the bone sword, carrying out Desolate Hellsword in a purely defensive way. A circle of white light swirled, creating impenetrable defense and repelling the 5 corpse soldiers beyond the sword light. He just saw Shenyuan Ziguang condense 22 flashes of sword chi. It wasn't a ray, yet it possessed some powers of the ray, bringing him great inspiration. Why couldn't he do it as well? Even though it was simulating a ray, he might be able to actuate the second style of the 3 styles of black origin, which had extremely terrifying destructive power. Although the limit of Mysterious 3000 was firing 3000 sword lights, their destructive power terrifying, but intrinsically, this was an area of effect type ultimate move, whereas 10,000 techniques return to 1 was the truly all-conquering one. Accumulating 3000 attacks in one sword strike, just how terrifying was this destructive power? Ling Han treated the 5 corpse soldiers as training partners. As he swung the bone sword, sword chi whirled, but was all in a mess. He was in the process of comprehending, and didn't have a clue exactly how to make it work, so it was naturally like a child waving a sword completely without coherence. However, this didn't matter. Desolate Hellsword was a heaven-grade art known for its defensive ability, and carrying it out, his defense was impenetrable. Unless one's battle prowess suppressed Ling Han, it was difficult to overcome his purely defensive sword art. Tian Xiaoning bawled in anger. His entire body emitted corpse chi, which was used to stimulate the 5 corpse soldiers and make their battle prowess skyrocket in order to take down Ling Han in one go. Ling Han was immersed in his own world. The bone sword was almost moving based on his instincts. Occasionally, there would be an oversight that was caught by the corpse soldiers, but so what if they hit him? He had iron sheet body, which was hard enough to be comparable to same-tier rare metals. The fiercer and more forceful the corpse soldiers were, the more the rebound shook their bones, making them face danger of collapsing. This wasn't an illusion. Just like a stone man fighting a wooden man, even if the former sat still and let the latter attack at will, the fiercer his attacks, the easier it was for the latter to collapse. However, the difference between Ling Han and the corpse soldiers hadn't reached the same extent. Moreover, the power of impact was still genuine, and though Ling Han's physique was certainly formidable, it still made him feel somewhat unwell. Fortunately, he was only struck once or twice occasionally, and with indestructible heaven's scroll circulating, the shock that penetrated his body immediately subsided. Looking at such a battle, everyone was speechless. Are they the corpse soldiers, or are you? How could you be so tough? Some people thought of how agile Ling Han was previously in battle, shaking off 5 heavy corpse soldiers and forcing Tian Xiaoning to fight one-on-one. Now, he displayed terrifying strength in defense. This guy was too much of an all-rounder, his attacks transcended concept and were untraceable, and when he defended, he was firm like a mountain, extremely skilled, and almost without a single weak point. Battling in the same tier, who could rival him? Shenyuan Ziguang? Yao Hui Yu? Ling Han didn't care about everyone's astonishment. He simply treated the 5 corpse soldiers as whetstones, grinding his accumulation of sword qi. Moreover, not far away, Shenyuan Ziguang was battling fiercely with Zhu Tianji, and he could refer to him at any time, practicing what he had just learned. This was equivalent to being imparted with knowledge on the spot. Also, Ling Han had the eye of truth. He kept observing the way Shenyuan Ziguang combined 22 flashes of sword qi, turning it into his own comprehension. Tian Xiuning couldn't possibly know that Ling Han was attempting a breakthrough, and instead assumed that Ling Han was finally suppressed by the corpse soldiers. Instinctively, he bellowed repeatedly and intensified their attacks, swearing that he would kill Ling Han on spot. Although it appeared that he had the advantage, he couldn't turn the advantage into a victory. Ling Han looked like he only had the power to hold his own, yet he was guarding safely and stably, counterattacking occasionally out of the blue. Ling Han's gaze became brighter and brighter. He suddenly laughed loudly, and said, "I understand. I understand. What do you understand?" Tian Xiuning looked at Ling Han, simply thinking this opponent's mind was somewhat abnormal, and he just shouted, "Good that you understand. Give me back my sword." "All right, here." Ling Han swung the sword, firing out a flash of sword qi. However, this flash of sword qi was extremely thick. Moreover, it was also like a wriggling snake, extremely unstable. Tian Xiuning, however, was greatly shocked. This flash of sword qi felt too terrifying, making him feel with a chill that he definitely shouldn't block it forcibly. Pa! This flash of sword qi exploded on its own as it was fired out. The shattered sword qi surged, raising a sky full of dust. Ha 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 ha. A few thousand corpse sect disciples instantly guffawed, but even more people revealed a thoughtful expression. This sword qi was unusual. His condensing sword qi. Someone finally saw through it, crying out in surprise. Yes, his forming a ray. Impossible, how could a ray scatter? Moreover, this was clearly a flash of sword qi, without a hint of a ray in it. I got it. This guy is imitating Shenyuan Ziguang, combining sword qi and not fusing it into a ray. Hiss. Now, everyone was speechless. This youngster was too freakish. He obviously saw Shenyuan Ziguang's battle, and then thought of imitating it. However, the question was such a mystical art something that could be learned just from watching for a short while? Similarly, many people had seen sword qi and saber qi, yet how many people could cultivate it? Seeing it and personally comprehending it, these were two completely different things. It failed. Ling Han shook his head but didn't look disappointed at all. This was a test, of course. Again, he struck with the sword again, and Hong, a thick pillar of light resembling sword qi shot out. However, it was still the same. Not long after the sword qi was shot out, without unleashing any power, it broke down on its own. It failed again. It's a very apparent matter. To grasp a mystical art in such a short time, could it be that easy? There's definitely a key to operating it. It can't be learned simply by watching it a few times. Atop the wall, quite a few people made cynical remarks. Ling Han was too freakish, making many people feel envious. However, some attentive people discovered that Ling Han's flash of sword qi lasted a tiny bit longer compared to the one earlier. Truly just a tiny bit, but it certainly lasted longer. Regarding this, Ling Han was obviously the clearest. He revealed a smile, waving the sword again without flagging at all, improving on his own deficiencies. 10 strikes, 20 strikes, and 30 strikes. His improvement was more and more apparent to the point where most people discovered that the time his sword qi was maintained was becoming longer and longer. Tian Xiuning was shocked. Was he acting as Ling Han's whetstone? He roared and said, "Blood bones break." Instantly, the 5 corpse soldiers roared fiercely, letting out a beast-like shriek. A bizarre change happened to their right arms, turning them into bone spears that emitted a terrifying presence. The 5 corpse soldiers brandished their bone spears simultaneously, stabbing at Ling Han. The momentum of the spears was as if they could penetrate through any defense no matter how powerful it was. Break! Ling Han also shouted lightly, striking a dazzling blow with the sword. Chapter 568, 1000 Corpse Sects Crushing Defeat. Chapter 568, Thousand Corpse Sects Crushing Defeat. Reverie _ As the sword swept by, it was as if a true dragon had revived. The thick and long sword Chi spread its claws, slashing towards the 5 corpse soldiers. Peng, 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 the sword Chi swept past, and the 5 corpses were sent flying all together as if they were 5 feathers too frail to stand a gust of wind, unable to stand even a single blow. After they landed, everyone saw clearly that there were actually spiderweb-like cracks on their bones. Hiss! Everyone gasped in astonishment. Corpse soldiers had formidable physique, but under Ling Han's sword attack, cracks actually appeared. Wasn't this too ridiculous? The sword Chi was only fired out with a 6th-tier spirit tool, and even if it were stronger than the corpse soldiers, it shouldn't be powerful to such a degree. He condensed sword Chi, someone said in a quavering voice. Not a sword ray, but condensed flashes of sword Chi. Their power far surpassed average sword Chi, but was inferior to sword rays. This was a stage where one could both retreat and advance, possessing might that surpassed Chi but was not constrained by a ray. One could still continue to increase the amount of flashes of Chi. A genius. A freak. Simply looking at Shenyuan Ziguang operate it for a short while, he learned it already? My God, could there really be such a terrifying guy in the world? However, they didn't know that Ling Han had stood at the heights of the heaven tier, and in this lifetime, he'd even acquired a mystical power, the Eye of Truth, which could reach the essence of things, allowing him to clearly see how Shenyuan Ziguang combined and used Qi. Once he had the inspiration, with his martial talent and the height he'd once stood at, combining sword Qi became a piece of cake. Damn it! Tian Xiuning roared angrily and unleashed from within his body waves of corpse Qi, which surged into the 5 corpse soldiers. Instantly, the cracks on their bodies healed at an extremely fast rate. This was the advantage of corpse soldiers. As long as there was an endless supply of corpse Qi, they were almost undying. Else, why had Shenyuan Ziguang not won against Zhu Tianji despite grasping the mystic arts of combining Qi, and having reached 22 flashes of Qi? On one side, Zhu Tianji was certainly very strong, and on the other, it was because of the undying characteristic of corpse soldiers. Kill. Tian Xiuning controlled the corpse soldiers again to attack at Ling Han. Ling Han, however, was unperturbed, and muttered, sword Qi combining has succeeded, but to adhere the bone patterns on it is somewhat difficult. He wanted to adhere the old vicious mongoose's bone patterns onto the sword Qi. This could greatly increase the Qi flash's power. However, now that the sword Qi was an amalgam, adhering the bone patterns onto it was difficult. Ling Han continued to use the 5 corpse soldiers as sparring partners, continuously striking out with sword Qi. As the terrifying sword attacks swept past, the 5 corpse soldiers were injured repeatedly. Even if Desolate Hell Sword was mainly defensive, the combined sword Qi's power was too strong. Tian Xiuning no longer had the energy to partake in the battle, simply unleashing corpse Qi continuously to repair the corpse soldiers. Otherwise, once these corpses were shattered, it would also mean his crushing defeat. Although he was a highly ranked disciple in the 1000 Corpse sect, corpse Qi still had its limits, and he soon felt immense pressure. After countless slashes, Ling Han struck again with the sword, yet discovered that there were no corpse soldiers that came to block the sword. He was startled. Looking at Tian Xiuning, he said, "Why aren't you fight? T, why are you looking so ghastly, trying to scare people to death?" Although Tian Xiuning was far from being handsome and bright, he was still tall and masculine, emitting an astounding presence all over his body. But now? He actually became emaciated, so much that his skin stuck onto his bones as if he'd starved for several months. You still want to humiliate me?" Tian Xiuning said with a quavering voice. He continuously repaired the 5 corpse soldiers and had exhausted his corpse Qi, even consuming quite a bit of origin source corpse Qi, so he naturally shriveled up into a skeletal monster. "Haha, didn't notice," Ling Han said without any sincerity while revealing a regretful look. He still hadn't adhered the bone patterns onto the combined sword mainly because his opponent couldn't take much of a beating. Tian Xiuning mustered up some remaining strength and leapt back to his own side. This battle was obviously a crushing defeat. "Next," Ling Han said indifferently. Bai Yuan stared at Ling Han, feeling a sense of speechlessness. He'd known that there were hidden talents in the middle state and that the current prodigies were even more likely to appear at a place like Million Treasures City. Thus, he'd brought 10 of the sect master's disciples to come here for a challenge, toughening these conceited youngsters. However, he'd still been sure on the inside that with Zhu Tianji present, opponents would be easily suppressed no matter how strong. Now, Zhu Tianji was obstructed, while the other disciples suffered crushing defeat. They didn't lose to one person, but they collectively lost 3 times. First losing to a small little girl, then losing to a naturally foolish girl, and then to this young man. What an unlucky year this was. There were too many prodigies. No need to fight, I'll count it as you winning 9 rounds. Wait till the third's fight stops, then he'll fight you, Bai Yuan said grudgingly. Ling Han cracked a smile, and said to Shenyuan Ziguang, Little Guang Guang, can you do it or not? If you can't, leave it to me. Bullsh. T. Shenyuan Ziguang roared angrily as divine light flashed in his eyes, and purple-colored flames were emitted from his body. Hong, his aura actually skyrocketed. Power of bloodline? Ling Han muttered. At this moment, Shenyuan Ziguang was truly powerful, and it felt like he'd already surpassed the level of the flower blossom tier and crossed into the height of the spiritual infant tier. Within 3 moves, I'll crush you. Shenyuan Ziguang shouted, firing both fists like hammers towards Zhu Tianji. Peng, 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 peng. As expected, the 5 corpse soldiers weren't Shenyuan Ziguang's match at all, exploding into pieces with a casual strike and not even having the chance to be restored. Zhu Tianji's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly retreated toward the side of the 1,000 corpse sect, no longer daring to fight. This was natural. Spiritual infant tier elites suppressed flower blossom tier 1s, and he wasn't strong to the point where he could crush a spiritual infant tier while at a disadvantage, so he could only forfeit the battle. Zhu Tianji was also defeated. At this point, the 1,000 corpse sect's 10 disciples were all defeated, making them all lose face. They clearly came with the light of the victorious yet were trampled into dregs. No one could keep their heads up. Bai Yuan sighed inwardly. The eldest and the second didn't come, so it seemed like they could only swallow the defeat this time. Han Lin, dare to fight me? Shenyuan Ziguang targeted Ling Han. Ling Han's gaze swept by as he said, want to fight? Then fight. Where do you come up with all this nonsense? Ha 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 ha, though I really dislike you, I must admit, you certainly have quite the nerve. Shenyuan Ziguang charged over, striking with his palms, and a massive fire tiger was formed. I'll let a thieving man like you know what true power is. After he activated the power of bloodline, his power skyrocketed, breaking through the level of the flower blossom tier. Condensing 22 flashes of chi again, the fire tiger could even annihilate low-stage spiritual infant tier opponents. It was terrifyingly powerful. Ling Han obviously wouldn't counter it head-on. He was originally behind in cultivation by quite a lot, not to mention now that the power of bloodline was activated. It was like taking a forbidden medicine as Shenyuan Ziguang instantly became several times fiercer. He displayed the demon fairy step. Once he delayed to when the power of bloodline was exhausted, he would launch a counteroffensive. Chapter 569 Monkey's Wine. Chapter 569 Monkey's Wine. Reverie _ However, Ling Han and Shenyuan Ziguang didn't fight in the end, as Yin Shuiyang intervened and separated the two. Hihi, at high noon tomorrow, you, and you, can bring people out to leave this city, Bai Yuan said, pointing at Ling Han, Helian Zun Shui, and the rest. He left right after he finished talking. They were utterly defeated, so they obviously had no more face to stay. Small Yang, why not make him stay? An old woman appeared soundlessly, supporting herself with a cane. She looked old and shaky, but taking a glance at her, one would feel a frightening impact as if one's head was about to explode, showing the old woman's terrifying strength. Sister Ma, even if we joined hands, could we defeat 7 Heaven Tier Corps soldiers? Yin Shuiyang responded with a question. The old woman was speechless. The people of the 1,000 Corps sect were more terrifying the higher their tier because the higher it was, the more corpse soldiers they could control. Normal disciples could only control 1 to 2 same tier corpse soldiers, while prodigies could easily control many. However, for one like Bai Yuan, the corpse soldiers he could control reached the shocking amount of 7. Moreover, no one knew what level the corpse soldiers were. It would be alright if they were low stage ones, somewhat troublesome if they were medium stage ones, and almost invincible if they were high stage 1 ones. If they were at the peak of the heaven tier, it would be better to request a shattering void tier elite to come. With the great city guarding formation, Bai Yuan definitely couldn't charge into the city, but he didn't need to. The 4th killing formation would only take a few more days wearing the formation down. Once it was done, Million Treasures City would become a speck of dust in history. However, weren't there still many quotas to leave the city? Ling Han acquired 90, Hunyo also acquired 90, while Helian Zun Shui acquired 100. Shenyuan Zi Guang only acquired 10, Pang Xiongming also acquired 10, though he gave them up. A total of 190, yet Ling Han grasped the distribution of 180 quotas. Thus, Yin Shuiyang stopped Ling Han and Shenyuan Zi Guang's battle in a large part due to the distribution of these quotas. Since Bai Yuan made a Dao oath, he could be believed. The key was that staying here, the only option was death, so even if it were risky, it would be worth a try. Everyone wanted a quota to get out, and Ling Han thought of something better: auction. He didn't have a favorable impression of these so-called noble families in the city, so he would obviously take this chance to reap off them fiercely. At night, Spirit Treasures Pavilion conducted a groundbreaking auction, auctioning only one thing: the 180 quotas to leave the city. Ling Han didn't want gold and silver, he only wanted origin crystals, and it had to be 3-star origin crystals. Of course, if anyone was willing to use 4 stars, 5 stars, or 6 stars origin crystals to snap it up, Ling Han obviously wouldn't turn them down. Every quota started off at 103 stars origin crystals, and after some fierce contention, the cheapest quota reached 503 stars origin crystals. The most expensive was auctioned off at 10,700, it was the last quota, drawing the frenzied scramble for it. After giving the Spirit Treasures Pavilion a 10% commission, Ling Han still received nearly 20,000 3-stars origin crystals, making him beam with joy. After advancing into the flower blossom tier, his cultivation slowed down, but with this many 3-stars origin crystals, his cultivation could speed up again. Storing all the origin crystals into the Black Tower, Ling Han was in an extremely good mood, and began to drink with Zhu Shen and the others in a private courtyard. After drinking, he temporarily couldn't fall asleep, so he went for a walk by the lake. Helian Zun Shui obviously stuck by his side and pulled on the hem of his clothes while gripping onto that brick, looking like she would dare smack with it if Ling Han dared to shake her off. As they walked, they saw a black shadow that stood by the lakeside and held a wine gourd in hand, pouring fine wine into the lake. The rich alcoholic aroma spread, making the pores all over Ling Han's body relax and expand. This was an exceptional vintage wine, and martial artists would definitely get great benefits from drinking it. Ling Han looked reluctant to let it go to waste, and said, dear friend, such fine wine, isn't it a pity to waste it?" That person's back was against Ling Han. He turned around as he heard those words, sweeping a glance at Ling Han, but when his gaze swept by Helian Xuanxue, he stagnated slightly, revealing a hint of confusion in his eyes, which immediately became clear and bright. He laughed loudly and threw the wine gourd directly at Ling Han, and said, "Then I'll treat you to some wine." Ling Han took the wine gourd, and instantly, he felt a wave of amazing aroma spread, making him feel as if he were becoming an immortal. He focused his gaze and saw the golden-colored liquor, which looked like agar. He was the Grandmaster of Alchemy, and didn't lack understanding of worldly treasures. Thus, he blurted out, "Purple moon Ganoderma, thousand wind fruit, purple cloud soul essence, void flower, it's monkey's wine." Monkey's wine. According to the legends, monkeys harvested various spirit fruits and medicinal ingredients to brew fine wine. It was not only tasty and aromatic, but also quite strong and greatly tonic. Different levels of monkey beasts brewed monkey's wine with different effects, and possessing the medicinal ingredients that Ling Han listed, this was definitely brewed by the strongest of monkey beasts. Even Ling Han never had the chance to taste it in his former life. It could be said that even one drop of such a monkey's wine was extremely precious. Ling Han profited greatly tonight, but taking everything out wouldn't be enough to buy one drop of it. This was too precious. A youngster like you actually recognized the original ingredients of this monkey's wine? That person was also somewhat astounded. Under the moonlight's reflection was a man of sturdy stature who gave off the feeling of a tall mountain. Even if the skies collapsed, he would be able to prop it up. Ling Han was startled. He actually couldn't see through this middle-aged man. It was also quite normal, since this was Million Treasures City. A high-level heaven-tier elite wasn't something rare here. Old brother, this wine is too precious. I don't dare to drink it recklessly, Ling Han said with a smile and threw the wine gourd back. That large fellow laughed loudly, and said, since you recognize this monkey's wine, it's karma. Please. He threw the wine gourd back at Ling Han again, bold and sincere. One could see his magnanimous heart. Ling Han was no longer pretentious, and said, then thank you. He raised his head and the liquor instantly poured out of the gourd, flowing into his mouth like a waterfall. However, after one mouthful, Ling Han felt like would pass out from being drunk. This monkey's wine was tonic and strong, affecting the divine sense directly. Even spiritual infant tier and deity transformation tier elites would easily get drunk. However, Ling Han had a shred of heaven tier divine sense, and it was toughened under the sharpening of primal chaos source rock. He didn't pass out in one mouthful, but his eyes involuntarily became unclear. After having a good mouthful, he threw the wine gourd back at the large fellow, and said, old brother, please. That large fellow took the gourd and chugged it. He was much more kick-ass than Ling Han, drinking away half of the gourd with goo-doo sounds. Ling Han bared his teeth involuntarily. If he were to drink half a gourd, he would definitely die from being drunk and go straight to see the king of hell. Sigh, can't get drunk, that large fellow exclaimed as if he were completely fine. This show off. Chapter 570, Becoming Sworn Brothers. Chapter 570, Becoming Sworn Brothers. Reverie _ Old brother, something on your mind? Ling Han was clearly lower in tier, but the other didn't reveal his identity, so he was happy to pretend not to know. As a former heaven tier elite, and an old monster from millennia ago, he obviously didn't want to call these small guys seniors. That large fellow simply drank aggressively, revealing a heartbroken look in his eyes. No need to say, it's definitely pain from love, Ling Han immediately said. You can see through it. That large fellow turned to look at him. Ling Han snickered, and said, I'm an experienced person, so how could I not have seen through it? Haha, then cheers again. That large fellow laughed, and as his hand swayed, he took out a wine bowl and threw it to Ling Han after filling it up. With the abilities of such a great expert, there obviously wouldn't be a drop of wine spilled. Ling Han didn't dare to chug it down. If he drank one more mouthful, he would definitely pass out, so he only took a small sip. That large fellow didn't force him, either, and simply chugged down on his own. Ling Han felt pained seeing this. This truly lacked any appreciation and was a great waste. Monkey's wine was more than precious, and drinking it like that was just defiling it. Old brother, whatever matter pains the heart, talking about will make it easier to endure, Ling Han advised. That large fellow looked deeply at Ling Han, and actually began to talk about it. His story was quite simple. A young man fell in love with a young woman. They met for the first time at a lakeside, falling in love at first sight. Afterwards, they traveled the world together, sweetly in love. However, maybe it was because the resentment of singles was too deep, but the young woman actually contracted an incurable disease. No matter how remarkable the young man's cultivation was, he couldn't find spiritual medicine to cure it. In the end, the young woman passed away, leaving the young man all by himself. Every year at this time, the young man would come here to reminisce about his first meeting with the girl. Countless years passed, and the young man became the middle-aged man he was now. Ling Han couldn't help but feel sympathetic and began talking about heavenly divine Phoenix Maiden. Of course, he wouldn't say that it was matters from 10 millennia ago, making slight changes. Now, the two were really resonating, seeing eye to eye. In reality, the two people's feelings were completely different, but losing their loved ones, the more they agreed, being slightly intoxicated, The two actually became sworn brothers. Second brother, I'm Feng Po Yun. If anyone bullies you in the future, just announce your older brother's name, that large fellow said with his arm around Ling Han's shoulder. This younger brother is Ling Han. Ling Han didn't use a fake name. This large fellow felt bold and magnanimous to him, and definitely wasn't the type that placed emphasis on interests. Moreover, this person was true and forthright, he was a true man. Sigh, your older brother just can't get drunk. Feng Po Yun shook his head repeatedly, appearing extremely unfortunate. His tier was too high, and things in this world that could get him drunk were probably impossible to find. This older brother was truly eccentric. This monkey's wine was for him to get drunk, and so he entered an ancient forest to find it, fighting a great battle with terrifying monkey beasts. Nevertheless, he still couldn't get drunk. Ling Han pat his chest and said, "Older brother, don't worry, I'll definitely brew an exceptional fine wine and get you drunk for 3 years. He wasn't boasting. He entered too many historic sites in the previous life, and other than obtaining many arts and skills, he also obtained a few unconventional things such as brewing recipes. There was a type of divine brew, its effects were nature-defying, claiming that even gods would get drunk, but the ingredients it required were ridiculously precious, even he couldn't have gathered it in his previous life. In this life, he was qualified to advance into the shattering void tier, and naturally had hope in creating the divine brew. Ling Han was willing to call Feng Po Yun older brother because the latter was currently already 400 years old, older than Ling Han's combined age in 2 lifetimes. Calling him older brother was still suitable, and as for the 10 millennia of the soul's existence, there was no body, so he naturally wouldn't age, it didn't count. Then older brother will wait for you. Feng Po Yun laughed loudly. Although the two brothers just met not long ago, their temperaments were congenial, and the more they conversed, the more they agreed. Ling Han lived as a man twice, and stood at the top of the world in the previous life, so how could his experiences be any inferior? They talked for a long while, and Ling Han passed out in a daze at last. When he opened his eyes again, he saw a snow-white neck and a beautiful chin. It turned out his head was resting on Helian Zun Shue's thighs. As expected, a flat chest. Otherwise, from his angle, he should see 2 mountain peaks, and it should be impossible to see her chin, let alone the neck. However, when Hai Nyo recovered her memories in the future and recalled this scene, Ling Han instantly felt a waterfall-like amount of cold sweat. This would probably lead to him being hunted down. Ling Han got up and instantly felt an intense headache, making him cover his head. It truly hurt like hell. Ever since cultivating, he very rarely had hangover, but this time, he was in a drunken mess. This wine was truly fierce. However, Ling Han immediately discovered that his cultivation rocketed upwards by 2 small tiers. From the flower blossom tier onwards, the increase in cultivation was directly related to martial comprehension, but he actually increased 2 small tiers while intoxicated. What did this imply? Monkey's wine was too kick-ass. Ling Han exclaimed inwardly. However, this was also because it was his first time drinking it, and so the effects were the most intense. The next time he drank it, there would definitely be benefits, but it definitely wouldn't be as fierce as this time. It should be the same as spiritual liquid drank a little at a time. Moreover, drinking like this was truly intolerable as his head was almost about to explode. Ling Han. Helian Zun Shui called out worriedly. Hai Nyo, not so loud, not so loud. Ling Han hurriedly gestured by pressing his hand downwards. With that shout, his head began to buzz painfully again. He took out some spiritual liquid from the black tower and drank few mouthfuls to sober up, then washed up with some lake water, finally feeling somewhat better. He asked, "Where's my older brother?" "He left." Helian Xuanxue said. "But, he said he'll come back in a while to resolve a predicament for you." Resolve a predicament? Could it mean being trapped in Million Treasures City? Although this older brother was fierce, what was outside was the 4th killing formation. Let's go back first. Ling Han looked at the time of day. It was already past noon, and the forces that took the quotas yesterday were probably in a crazy rush. As expected, when he arrived at the city gates, many people looked at him angrily, appearing extremely unfriendly. "Han Lin, why have you just come now?" someone reprimanded. Ling Han had an annoyed look all over his face. Covering his ears, he said. You got a problem? What are you yelling for? Don't you know how to talk properly? That person was a spiritual infant tier elite, but seeing that Linghan dared to talk to him like that, he couldn't help but reveal a furious expression. Alright, don't let people make a fool of themselves, Yin Shuiyang said, pointing to the bottom of the city gates. Bai Yuan had already appeared. Linghan said, the people who took the 180 quotas all go down. He had the Black Tower, and naturally never thought about the quotas. Moreover, he still wanted to get the innocent people out of the city. The 180 people under the city gates all looked pleasantly surprised in their renewed life. They could finally leave this hell of a place. Old man, you've made this place murky and foul, I really don't like it, someone shouted in a deep voice. A tall figure walked from within the city, waved at Bai Yuan, and said, whatever Million Treasures city looked like, return it to the way it was. Chapter 571, Feng Po Yun. Chapter 571, Feng Po Yun. Reverie _ Linghan was astounded. The man tall like a mountain was obviously the older brother Feng Po Yun, whom he had become sworn brothers with yesterday. Who's this? Such great nerve, daring to call a heaven-tier elite an old man. Don't know, might be a stray that's been trapped too long in the city and was bewildered into going crazy. Yes, that's right. That's right. Atop the wall, everyone discussed animatedly, but not everyone had eyesight like Linghan, being able to see Feng Po Yun's powerfulness. In the eyes of normal people, this large fellow was just slightly sturdy, slightly out of the ordinary, and didn't have many specialties. However, heaven-tier elites, in the clear and in the dark alike, all revealed a grave expression. They couldn't see through this large fellow's strength. This proved one point. The other person's cultivation was not at all below theirs. Bai Yuan was even more careful. With a battle cry, 7 caskets slid over from afar. The other person had bad intentions and would most likely attack, so he couldn't be careless at all. Normally, heaven-tier warriors were already at the world's peak, so they were naturally bold and unrestrained. However, the Thousand Corpse sect was somewhat special. Even its shattering void tier sect master was hidden, never showing their true self. The sect master's officers, the 7 venerable heaven-tier warriors, were naturally also cautions. At least, before the Thousand Corpse sect stood in front of the public formally, each one of them maintained a low profile and a cautious manner. Lordship, who are you? Bai Yuan asked in a shout. Feng Po Young picked his ears, and said, do you have hearing problems? I told you to remove this formation, or else I'll personally take it down. Haha, what an arrogant tone. Why don't you take it down for this old man to see? Bai Yuan said threateningly. This was the 4th killing formation, and although the sect master didn't acquire the complete formation, being only able to unleash 50% of its power, it wasn't difficult to erase a low-level shattering void tier cultivator. This large fellow actually said he'd take it down. Feng Po Yun's gaze focused like a sweeping flash of lightning, making Bai Yuan's eyes hurt as if they were about to explode. So powerful. Bai Yuan was shocked and hurriedly controlled the corpse soldiers to attack. Peng, 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 7 caskets opened simultaneously, and 7 corpses leapt out. Every corpse soldier only had their bones left, but these bones were golden, as if made of metal. However, on each piece of bone grew a foot-long bone spike, which gave people an extremely strange feeling. Just 7 skeletons? And you want to block me? Feng Po Yun said in disdain. Bai Yuan was furious. He received the sect master's help in refinement of those 7 corpse soldiers, and solely in terms of defense, they already reached the limit of the heaven tier. Even peak stage heaven tier elites would go through some strenuous effort to break them down. Moreover, these corpse soldiers were not any weaker when it came to attack power. After the bone spikes were refined over and over again, they could easily tear through a heaven tier warrior's defense, and once they got close, they could instantly pierce a heaven tier elite full of bloody holes. Kill. Bai Yuan pointed at Feng Po Yun. 7 corpse soldiers instantly leapt out and charged towards Feng Po Yun. Atop the city, an old woman appeared and asked Yin Shuiyang, should we help? I, small Yang, can't see through this person at all. His strength is unfathomably deep, so let's take a look first, Yin Shuiyang said, shaking his head. This lord might have seen this person somewhere. Another old man appeared and stared at Feng Po-yun, revealing a doubtful look. Ling Han couldn't help but be somewhat worried. These 7 corpse soldiers were all third-tier golden-armored corpses, and were refined to the limit. Even if he recovered the strength of his former lifetime's prime, he wouldn't dare to fight them head-on. Well, if it was Sword Emperor, or Heavenly Divine Phoenix Maiden, then maybe it'd be a different story. Feng Po-yun, however, didn't care at all. He took out the wine gourd and began to take big gulps. The liquor flowed down the corner of his mouth. His beard was full of sparkling liquid, marked by vicissitudes. The corpse soldiers arrived, covering him in golden bones in an instant. It was over. Also, everyone thought those were third-tier golden-armored corpses, and being surrounded so closely by them, heaven-tier elites would inevitably die no matter how strong they were. No one thought that such an elite would die so stupidly. Bai Yuan sneered. This was the consequence of looking down on him. Did people really think that the 1,000 Corpse sect was easy to bully because they didn't appear openly in the world? Wrong. Everyone in the 1,000 Corpse sect nurtured corpse soldiers, and each person could at least fight 1 against 2. The higher their tier, the more terrifying their battle prowess. He alone could equal 6 to 7 heaven-tier elites. How surprising was that? Wang, as the 7 corpse soldiers attacked, a flash of purple light surged, turning into a circle and then exploding fiercely. Peng, 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 peng. The 7 corpse soldiers were shocked and thrown back altogether, and their skeletal frames that were strong as peak stage heaven tiers disintegrated, turning into infinite bone splinters. The purple brilliance rippled. Feng Po-yun stood loftily like a supreme god, the ground beneath his feet and the heavens above his head. The entire world had to prostrate and tremble before him. His hair fluttered and his eyes were like the stars, as if a divine chain of order that could lock and extinguish everything. The supreme aura rippled, striking the highest of heavens and shaking the depths of hell. Only he stood supreme over all. Pa, 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 pa. Everyone knelt down. Only heaven-tier elites could barely resist, but it was still hard for them to hide the anxiety and fear in their hearts, having almost no courage to resist. Shattering void tier. Bai Yuan's face was dreadfully pale, and he looked extremely dispirited. In the 7 corpse soldiers were shreds of his divine sense, and Feng Po-yun had directly wiped them out, making him suffer a substantial injury. At this time, he had at most 30% of his battle prowess remaining. However, the 1,000 corpse sect relied mostly on corpse soldiers, and now that the 7 corpses all turned into dregs, his 30% battle prowess was in terms of his own personal battle prowess. His true battle prowess was probably not even 1/100th of what it had been. Everyone no longer had any doubts. Being able to break down 7 peak stage heaven tier corpse soldiers was something only the strongest in this world could do. The shattering void tier. It's an honor to see your lordship. Atop the city wall, Yin Shuiyang and the other heaven tier elites paid their respects one after another. Shattering void tier. There were only so many of them in middle state, countable by the fingers on one's hands. Feng Po-yun. Finally, someone voiced out Feng Po-yun's identity. Feng Po-yun waved his hands, appearing disinterested, and said to Bai Yuan, "Don't say that I'm bullying little kids. Remove the formation and never come to Million Treasures City again." Bai Yuan paid his respects as well. Regardless of foe or friend, shattering void tier elites possessed the most honorable status, standing at the peak of humanity. One step further, and they could become gods, receiving the worship of the world. However, after paying respects, he said, "Forgive this old one for not obeying. Lord Feng, taking down this city is the sect master's orders, and this old one doesn't dare to disobey. Then where is your sect master? Let him come out. I'll beat him till he's convinced," Feng Po-yun said in an extremely domineering way. This, Bai Yuan revealed an irritated look. In his heart, the Lord Sect Master was like a god, invincible amongst men. How could the Sect Master be slighted? He said, "Lord Sect Master is held up by some trivial matters and won't be able to come see Lord Feng in near time." Chapter 572, Resolving the Formation. Chapter 572, Resolving the Formation. Reverie _ Since you can't fight me, don't blabber so much. Feng Po Yun waved his hands. Get lost, I'm going to break the formation. Bai Yuan wouldn't possibly dare to block him. Only Feng Po Yun was slightly easier to talk to. If it were any other Shattering Void tier elite, he would have already died several hundred times. He hurriedly ran into the formation. Only inside the fourth killing formation did he have any sense of security. The fourth killing formation could kill even high-level Shattering Void tier elites, and although the formation wasn't complete, killing low-level Shattering Void tier warriors still wasn't an issue. If the Thousand Corpse sect could use the death of a Shattering Void tier elite to declare their reappearance, then it would definitely cause a stir through the word. Thinking about this, Bai Yuan couldn't help but get excited. Would he personally be the one to bring about such a miracle? Killing a Shattering Void tier elite. This was no different from killing a god. Killing a god to re-establish their sect, intimidating the entire world. Come, use your life to announce the return of the Thousand Corpse sect. Then, we'll refine your corpse into a corpse soldier, a holy corpse soldier that surpasses golden armored corpses. Feng Po Yu walked with large strides and entered the large formation with black mist swirling around him. Atop the city wall, everyone was nervous. This was truly the end of the line. They'd originally thought that they'd be trapped and die in the city, and never would have thought that a Shattering Void tier would suddenly appear. There was hope in breaking the formation. In everyone's hearts, Shattering Void tier elites were undefeatable legends, just like the existence of gods. They believed that if Feng Po Yun intervened, that large formation would definitely be broken. In a short while, terrifying divine light surged from afar and rippled over, instantly provoking the reaction of the great city-guarding formation, which started forming a shield. Even so, everyone's legs still shivered in fear and panic. This was a battle on the Shattering Void tier level, and if it weren't for the existence of the great city-guarding formation, the ripples alone could make Heaven tier warriors hack out blood, and Deity transformation tier ones break down into pieces. The power of the humanity's peak, so powerful that it couldn't be fathomed. Hong, hong, hong. The terrifying battle continued. Flashes of divine light shot towards the horizon, shaking the skies. Even the void was torn apart, and a constellation of stars was shattered and fell, turning into a stream of meteors. Ling Han suddenly felt an itch inside. In the vast lands, most 10th tier rare metals were harvested from meteors, and where did these meteors come from? They obviously came from constellations of stars. However, men's powers were limited, so how could anyone pluck stars and grab moons? There were terrifying gales that covered the skies densely, and even Heaven tier elites couldn't fly to the limit, so how could one speak of catching stars? Only Shattering Void tier warriors possessed the power near humanity's limits, approaching the power limit that this realm could accommodate. Only then could one reach out to shake down the stars. Feng Po Yun battled fiercely against the fourth killing formation and shattered many stars that turned into meteors falling to the ground. Although 10th tier rare metal could not be harvested from every star, but there should be at least one or two, right? Unfortunately, the fourth killing formation still hadn't been broken through, and if he were to charge out rashly, he would definitely be crushed to death. There were many people who harbored the same idea, and their gazes were burning with desire. But firstly, the killing formation deterred them, and secondly, who dared to take a mighty Shattering Void tier's belongings? That would truly be getting tired of living. The divine light shone on the world, shockingly terrifying. How many people could have personally seen a battle on the Shattering Void tier level? Now, everyone was destined to witness it, but separated by a formation, no one could truly see clearly. They could only sense the ripples of the battle and imagine the powerfulness of the Shattering Void tier. After some fierce fighting, suddenly, there was no more sound. It was over. Look, the mist is starting to fade, someone cried out. As expected, the mist certainly began to disperse at a fast pace, as if sucked by an air vent. In a few breaths' time, the black mist that covered the surrounding ground and the skies disappeared completely. The fourth killing formation had been deactivated. Extremely far away, Feng Po Yun's expression was filled with loneliness. A victory that people could only dream of was not worth a mention for him. He drank a mouthful of fine wine, and took large strides towards the city gates. Ling Han had to admit that this older brother had already surpassed the level of showing off, reaching new heights. So he's actually that impressive? Helian Xuanxue said in a quiet voice. Do you know him? Zhu Xian said astoundingly. Yesterday, Han Han and I bumped into him. He and Han Han drank and became sworn brothers, Helian Xuanxue said. Pu. Zhu Xian instantly spurted out. Becoming sworn brothers with a shattering void tier elite. This was truly like a fantasy, but thinking again, Ling Han was a heaven-grade alchemist, so becoming sworn brothers with a shattering void tier elite wasn't overreaching, as they were both at the peak of their respective fields. Ling Han, however, looked disgusted as his expression distorted. Han Han? When did this chick come up with a nickname for him? Everyone hurriedly came down the city walls and opened the gates, welcoming Feng Po Yun's return. Shattering void tier elites were supreme beings, and usually seeing them was as hard as climbing the skies, but this time, they actually received the help of a shattering void tier, truly unexpected. Lord Feng. Lord Feng. Yin Shuiyang and the other heaven tier warriors paid their respects. The others had no chance to speak, and simply knelt down in the distance. Feng Po Yun nodded, and said, I owed Yin-san a favor. He requested a few days ago that if Million Treasures City were to encounter a crisis, I should help him resolve it. So, you guys don't need to thank me. Yin-san wasn't just anyone, or else how could a shattering void tier owe him a favor? He was Spirit Treasures Pavilion's great pavilion master, named Yin Shan. Being ranked third, many that were familiar with him called him Yin-san too. Of course, only shattering void tier elites would dare call him Yin-san. Yin Shuiyang suddenly realized why Great Pavilion Master didn't worry about leaving with the other 7 Pavilion Masters. As it turned out, there was already a foolproof plan. With a shattering void tier elite keeping an eye out, wasn't that certain enough that nothing would go wrong? But, as to why Feng Po Yun didn't intervene earlier, leading them to assume that all was over. Well, who would dare question a shattering void tier elite? He was able to intervene, so you'd better thank the heavens. Feng Po Yun was obviously received by a few heaven tier elites only. Others had no right to go up, but some people still wanted to cause trouble. Han Lin, return the origin crystals, someone shouted at Ling Han. That's right, we didn't use yesterday's quotas at all, so return the origin crystals. Hand over the origin crystals. Yesterday, the people who bought the 180 quotas all shouted at Ling Han. In order to save their lives, they were cut fiercely. Now that the crisis was lifted, the more they thought about it, the more they were dissatisfied about it. Moreover, Ling Han was a mere flower blossom tier, and although there was a freakish little girl by his side, she was still small, after all. The larger girl only had amazing brute force, and was at most in the spiritual infant tier. On the other side, there was a handful of deity transformation tier experts, and even heaven tier beings. Return the origin crystals, countless people demanded of Ling Han. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,